Welcome in, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the SMITE podcast. I'm Isaiah. I'm going to be y'all's host, and for those of you who haven't caught our first episode, this is a podcast where we talk to different members of the Titan Forge staff, the Titan Forge team, just about what they do, how they contribute to SMITE, and how they make the game super awesome. And I'm so excited for this episode because we have some really special guests joining me today. A couple people who haven't been on any kind of show in a long time. I've got Ajax, the amazing Ajax from the design team, and I've got Kilgoon, who's on the Titan Forge team.
Yeah.
So I guess before we kick things off, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good week. I think we're both, struggling to get sleep with little babies in our lives.
Both of you all are new fathers, which is awesome. No, happy belated Father's Day.
Thank you.
Just passed to both of you.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, everything's good. Very excited about new season. I won a 4v5 arena game last night where one of my teammates failed to load in. So life's good.
You take it. You take the W no matter what. That's awesome.
And I spent the whole night crunching balance numbers instead of playing the game, as I often do. So here we are.
Hey, we had a new season just drop. I know you've got lots of data coming in. We have lots of feedback coming in, and bonuses coming next week, so we got to get ready for that.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into it when we get there.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to kick things off, and for those of you who don't know, for the people watching on Twitch right now, for the people who are listening, I want to give you all just a chance to kind of introduce yourselves and kind of your roles on the Titan Forge team and what you do. So we'll start with Ajax.
Yeah. So I'm AJ, or Ajax, the design director. I'm lead of all of the teams that do all of the gameplay related stuff. So game balance, new god design, event design, levels. I dabble a lot with the monetization team, the skins and stuff like that as well. So a little bit of everything. I also very involved with the community team, especially with the Olympians program, the pro feedback program. I'm in those Discords chatting with those people up all the time.
More than me sometimes, which is crazy. I don't know how you do it with a kid.
I love talking to them. Honestly, I can't stop myself. I want to talk to them, and they give really good feedback. So big shout outs to our Olympians and our Olympian alumni for being super helpful over all the years. I love this group we've got this year. I'm always in there with them. But, really what it boils down to, especially not just me, but me and Alex working together, we're at the, the high level planning, long-term planning for SMITE. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
What are we going to do next? What type of stuff do we want to put in the game? Spending a lot of time looking at our internal data, our player feedback and industry trends, trying to come up with the coolest stuff that we can.
Yeah. All right, I'll pass to you, Alex.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a big reveal moment for me, too.
Drum roll.
Drum roll, please. Yeah, so my name is Alex Cantatori. I am Kilgoon, some of you may know me as. And as of very recently, I am the new executive producer of SMITE. So I am now leading the project. Very excited to be
my boss.
Yeah. I am.
Which people just assume all the time that I'm in charge of.
Right. You're Mr. Hi-Rez, right?
Not in charge of. All the time.
Amazingly, somehow I am AJ.
He's actually in charge of that.
And yeah, no, it's great. For those of you who don't know me or have never seen me around before, I've been at Hi-Rez for I think 9 years now, 8 or 9 years. It's been a long time.
Longer than me.
I started as a fan of SMITE. I was a player of SMITE.
As we all did. As we all did.
Yeah.
And I had a little website in like season 0 of SMITE esports. Where I was, while I was working a different job, just for fun, was keeping track of SMITE esports and who was winning and losing and writing up game reports and whatnot.
What was it called?
SMITE-tastic.
SMITE-tastic.
Yeah,
you got to do the
Shout
plug.
out to the OGs. I know, right? You got to plug it.
The website is long dead. I forgot to pay the bill one year and it just disappeared.
I just let it go.
But yeah, so yeah, I came into Hi-Rez as a SMITE lover. I've spent a lot of years on the brand and publishing side of the business. Mm-hmm. So I have led brand and led publishing across the company for a while, and I've really spent the last 5 years probably as a member of SMITE's leadership team from that perspective, being very intimately involved with all of the planning, all of the decisions around what we're doing and when, and understanding what players are looking for and how we can be sure that we're delivering things that players really want in the game. And yeah, about 2, maybe 3 months ago now, I was asked to step into the role of executive producer. So now I'm overseeing all the actual game dev in addition to the brand stuff. So it's exciting. It's a great new challenge, and really just excited to be working with the team and making a game that I love so much.
I know, right? Well, I know for sure I'm happy to have you both in the positions that you're in because you absolutely kill it, but happy to have you all on the podcast. And then, AJ, you touched on a little bit about a lot of what you and Alex do is mainly focused on like high-level planning and figuring out how we make things the most hype. And my question for both of you is like, how? Like, what does a day in the life of both of you look like? How do you all make that happen?
It's a complex process, right? And there's a lot of things I think we could talk about today that a lot of people probably don't know about and how game dev works. Like Alex said, he came from the publishing and brand team, also referred to as like marketing in a more casual sense. People have probably heard that, but different game studios work with those teams differently. So I'm not going to say what we do here is like the industry standard. I think there's probably a lot of studios that do similar things, but a lot of people that do differently. But at Hi-Rez, we were always, development and brand were always really closely tied together because community feedback and community presentation is so important to us. And the brand team has really good insight. Like Alex has always been one of the best, my go-tos at the studio for just industry trends and data about what other games are doing,
right.
what other games, what's working well, what's not, what's coming out. He is like an encyclopedia on what's coming up next, what games are coming out. You know, I lose track of that stuff.
I love games so much. Like, yeah, sorry, go for it.
No, I was just that. So we work. That's how we kind of started working like that together, and that process has still carried through today. You know, so we're looking a lot at what our competitors are doing, be games that have been around for years, like, you know, League and Dota, or games that are brand new coming out. What are the new games coming out? What are they doing? Always interested, excited about them, checking them out because we're gamers, like Alex said. But
that's
also
one of my favorite things to do is like, oh, what's the new game dropping? And it's not even about playing it for me. It's just like, oh, well, how are they announcing it? How are they engaging with their players? What are they doing with their community? What can I steal that worked really well from them and kind of apply for Smite?
Right. So learning and analyzing and processing that information, then turning it back into your own. And then the other part of it is a lot of just, when we say planning, it's a lot of, I guess you could say, budgeting, but not just in specifically monetary budgets, but time and resources and people, and what we want to do might not be what our team is best equipped to do. And can we make changes to the team to make that happen? Or do we make changes to the plan? And there's so many different variables that go onto that. So like, this is something that Alex and I are just a part of, but we have a large team, production, the other department leads, art director, tech director, stuff like that. It takes all of us working together and iterating through a lot of things to not only figure out what we think would be most exciting to do on Smite, but how are we going to do it? How long is it going to take? How are we going to break it down? And then it comes to a lot of the individual department leads, like Clumsy and our art department, animation effects leads, to really make those even more specific decisions about each feature, about how they want to execute on it.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things is not just planning what the best thing is, but what is the thing we can do best.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because we want to deliver on great content for the people that play the game and always give people a reason to log in and be excited, right? Just recently, we were planning a tier 5. And we had this awesome tier 5 concept. This is for the future.
I know what you're talking about.
We had this awesome tier 5 concept that we were all really excited about, and we were really like stoked about it. And then once we started diving into the planning a little bit more with some of the individual departments, we realized we weren't going to be able to execute it at the level that we wanted to execute it, just due to a number of concerns about other things that were on the calendar and that we wanted to do. So we made a decision to go back to the drawing board and do an entirely different concept for the tier 5, which is pretty awesome. It was kind of a 1A, 1B, which was
all the tier 5s we've had lately are awesome, and we even were so internally split about them and couldn't decide because they all felt so awesome that we actually brought in some Olympians and pros to also analyze it, and they were also really split.
It was very different.
And so the decision ended up being made by what the team could best deliver on. Like, that's where Alex was going to. So.
Yeah. So I think like day in the life for both of us is, fortunately or unfortunately, it's a lot of meetings, right? Because a lot of our job is understanding what's going on in different departments across Titanforge, and helping them solve their problems and plan around different objectives from different groups. And also a lot of my day, just as executive producer, is dealing with people issues, right? Like, what are individual people working on? Where can they be the most effective? Oh, this person wants to join this other team, stuff like that. But I guess one other thing I was just kind of say is like, when we're putting together a schedule, one thing that makes it really challenging is SMITE is a game that has so many distinct groups of players.
Yeah.
Right? And, I'm a big Redditor. I think support the boycott. I'm a sync user on my phone, so I'm very sad I'm not going to be able to use that in a couple days. But big Redditor, and I think that like the Reddit opinion of what SMITE wants is totally valid. Mm-hmm. It's 100% something we look at every day. And we really care about what Reddit has to say. But we know from our years of doing this that Reddit represents one very important part of our community. And there's a extremely large percentage of SMITE players that will never post on Reddit, that might play 4 nights a week on their Xbox playing Arena.
And that's it.
And they're
as the homies.
And they're as important to the SMITE community as
extremely important
the hardcore Redditors who only play ranked conquest or whatever, right? Yeah. So we really need to always try to think about what's best for everyone, right? And how do we balance the things that the hardcore players want along with the casual players to make something that we think is really great for everybody. I think you've seen we've committed a lot to hardcore players this year by focusing so much on Conquest. Right. And that was really a linchpin of this entire year was we really want to update Conquest more regularly because we believe that group is so important. But at the same time, how can we design things that are impacting not just Conquest, because so much of the player base never touches it.
Yeah.
So. I mean, it's really about doing something for everyone, and you can't do that in one thing. You don't make one thing that's for everyone, but you make lots of different things. So we have different gods that cater towards different types of archetypes that players like to play, with different art styles, different balance changes that target. This is targeting more competitive, this is targeting more casual, and finding the right pattern of frequency. And what we found, generally is that the more engaged, hardcore, veteran, pro-level players, they want change constantly. Yeah. We pretty much figured out last year that
insatiable.
There was there was never too much. We were trying as much as we could to keep implementing new things, and people were always like, yeah, more. So this year we made this whole plan around to really, really delivering on that, and it certainly has delivered a lot. And there's also concerns about people like, how do casuals keep up with this and stuff like that? And the answer though is that they don't have to. You don't have to. You can just play SMITE. You can play Conquest even, or Arena. You don't have to know all the changes all the time. If you know where to be, have a decent build and hit your abilities, you will do better than most people who are overthinking everything.
You're hitting your stuff. You're being successful.
I was playing SMITE with a buddy who was really into League of Legends the other day, and only played maybe a couple games of SMITE in his life. And he was like, yeah, sure. What's the mode that's like League? I was like, yeah, Conquest. I was like, okay, cool. We loaded up and played a game together. And dude had no idea what to build, had never seen half the gods before, and was just wrecking the lobby because he understood how to play a MOBA.
The fundamentals.
Right? And there are some fundamentals that are transferable,
So that's why we found each year we have a lot of self-evaluation, a lot of self-assessment. That's other things that we lead in our department. So I'm analyzing every patch with my team. We're analyzing every patch with the greater leadership team, what performed well, what didn't, what's getting people excited, what's not, trying to make things better and better, iterate and iterate. So, I think this year 10 is really a culmination of all that 10 years of SMITE, of trying to find the right pace of competitive adjustments, the right pace of god releases, the right pace of skin releases, the right pace of going back and testing, doing things for the casual modes. We had the Joust updates at the end of last season. Yep. We're going to do something like that again for a casual mode at the end of the Season of Souls.
Spoiler
alerts. You're not going to come and have us two on the show without some spoilers. What am I even supposed to talk about?
Right.
But we're going to do some cool stuff like that coming up. So, but that's at a different pace and at different magnitudes, different scales. We remaking the Conquest map at the beginning of the year, that's big. People get really excited about that. When we remade the Joust map in 7.1, that wasn't that big. That wasn't that exciting. People were excited about it, but as far as when you're looking at the actual holistic view of a brand new season of SMITE, people expected more for Conquest, more competitive, more high level stuff. So when the big ticket item was a Joust map, a lot of people who were really excited about the patch were just like, nah, this is not my thing, you know? So we've been iterating on that to really make sure we maximize that as much as we can this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I know, Alex, you kind of touched on my next question was challenges of the role. I
there's
said
a
all
lot.
the outline early, but I know you touched on, making sure we make the best product for all the different groups and segments of the player base.
So many.
I know another thing that is super challenging is one thing that I always find fascinating whenever we inaugurate the Olympians Council and we have our first meeting, and the first thing we say is, oh yeah, we've got content planned out for pretty much the next 8-9 months. And I'm sure that's got to be a challenge. I'd love to talk to you all about what goes into making sure that we plan that far out and kind of how those decisions get made.
Yeah, I'm going to say it wrong because now I'm trying to think of the way to say it. But we usually say that SMITE is a large boat that is slow to turn, because there are well over 100 people working on SMITE. And
it's the same analogy Ben Brody used in his GDC talk this year.
Well,
oh, nice.
Look at me. I'm inspired by the best. Just to be able to do something as seemingly simple as making a skin, takes months and hits 7-8 different departments, maybe 9 departments, of people that need to have their own impact on it, right? So yeah, I mean, we're planning skins right now for November, I think. Yeah. So everything is very far out, and it limits our ability to be super reactive in some things.
Yeah.
But we try to be reactive as possible.
Exactly.
Essentially, our planning strategy is we plan things out in advance because things are related to each other, and you often need to. You're like, I don't feel so comfortable with my decisions about February without knowing what's going to happen in March. So you kind of have to do that to get the whole picture. And then certain number of things have to get started on very early and are relatively difficult to correct. Other things, like game balance, for instance, or we try to be as reactive as possible. Like my team works to the very last second of the very last day of making changes before we send things out to cert and all of our processes. Like we're constantly trying to tinker right up to the moment so that everything can feel as reactive as possible where possible. But yeah, the common analogy used is like when your game is small, when you've just started your game, you're just in the prototyping phase, you're the speedboat. You're moving fast and you're changing direction constantly. SMITE, though, been around for a very, very long time. We're the cruise liner. We got tons of beautiful features, Ferris wheel, roller coaster, water slide, everything you want on there. But when that thing has to change direction, it's going to take time. It takes a lot of people, a lot of work. So, but each new year, we really take time. We have these planning phases where we take the time to reevaluate. So before the new year starts, doing the year 10, the season structure, figuring out what we want to do, and then make sure it's another popular design concept. Like it's strong ideas loosely held. Yeah. So we have a very solid plan, but if it needs to change, that's okay. But it's still really helpful to have that solid plan because that's going to help everybody around you make better decisions about the plan, to have it in front of them, have them known. If everyone's making it up on the fly, then you're just going to have more miscommunications. Like a lot of, like Alex said, a lot of the things we're doing day to day is meetings. And what we're doing in most of these places is learning about people's problems and their blockers and giving them feedback, but also re-emphasizing clarity and intent and direction about where we're going, what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the high-level goals are of it, so that those teams can make the decisions about how to, implement things and reach those goals.
Yeah. Cool. Now, AJ, when I was talking to both you and Alex about the podcast, you sent me a sentence that really resonated in me, and it was like, if our roles are kind of boiled down into one sentence, it is, what we do is try to decide on hype stuff and how to do it. So I would love to kind of talk about some of the hype stuff that we've done in the past and how that process went. And I think the most recent thing that we can talk about is we're halfway through year 10. Like, let's take a little bit of time to kind of reflect on, the seasonal structure. That was a big change going into SMITE, right?
So I can talk a little bit about like what led us to this and why we thought it was interesting to do. So last year, I think it's safe to say that our initial season launch patch was not super well received.
9.1.
Yeah, 9.1. And we kind of missed the mark on a couple things, right? And one of the things that we realized was a lot of people will only give a game a chance if they haven't been playing in a while when there's a new season release, right? And when we try something and it doesn't work, which we like to be experimentative, we like to try new things. You know, you saw a lot of new things with Seasoned Souls, some which work and some which don't, which I'm sure AJ will talk more about.
Yeah, we can
but you know, if we try something and it doesn't work, then for a lot of players, they won't look at the game again until the next season because they don't understand the pace at which the game changes. Because players nowadays are so conditioned by a lot of live service games like, you know, Apex, Fortnite, whatnot, that have multiple seasons a year, and the time when the games change are at the seasons, right? And one thing that's interesting that probably a lot of our players maybe don't know is that Smite has a lot more player crossover with games like that than it does with other MOBAs. And our player expectations are more aligned with people who play, you know, those kinds of games. So our thought was, by changing to a schedule that's more aligned with what players expect, we can both give players more chances to re-engage with the game and see something new, give ourselves more freedom to take some risks without feeling like if we screw it up, we're screwed for a year, right? I think also just kind of try to reinvigorate the game a little bit more frequently.
Right, it aligns with the pace of change that our players wanted, which was more.
Yes.
So we were like,
in Conquest,
okay, here's
right?
how we can do it. And it wasn't just a presentational change, it also included a lot of internal resource shifting to make around the seasons being big, right? So we're putting a lot more of our design and gameplay resources into those season launches than we did in a previous year, which was essentially the X.1 and the mid-season, which was smaller. We've effectively already done 3 updates, all that were all larger than any mid-season. But maybe not, and some of them equal or as large as even a
season
like
launch.
9. You could probably compare Seasons of Souls to 9.1 and total gameplay, like new gameplay, and say it's more.
And we've had to grow a lot of teams to be able to support that, right? So our environment art team has gotten bigger, our level design team has gotten bigger. You know, we've done things to be able to support these map changes, and it took a lot of planning to be able to get us here to try doing this. And I think, you know, we've definitely seen pros and cons to the strategy so far. I think we have seen a really good bump in players with each one of these new seasons. People seem excited to come back and try what's new. I think we've seen another group of players that feel like, I don't know about these changes. I would rather just see more gods, you know. You know, there's definitely a lot of interesting takes out there, and we're reading them all and thinking now about like, well, what does next year look like? How do we take the learnings from this year and keep adjusting and keep adapting? Because
we're already planning 11-1.
We are. But the worst thing that we can do as a game is to become boring, right? One of the big things that AJ and I harp on when we go through planning every month is, what's the thing that players are going to be excited about this month? And what's the reason to log in? What's the thing that you're going to be stoked about? And we really try and make sure that every month has something like that. And sometimes
or multiple things like that.
Yeah, multiple things like that. Sometimes there's something that we have planned that doesn't ship that, you know, and a patch feels a little bit more lackluster than we would like. That's game development. It's hard.
It is hard.
But we really put a lot of work into thinking about what are players going to be excited about each month. What am I going to be excited about each month? Because I play Smite way too much. So
well, a lot of that does come from our internal, you know, we as players and lovers of the game have our own opinions about what we think would be exciting or not. It's a combination of, from design side, it's a combination of problem solving. So a lot of like the healer balance changes and the tank versus DPS balance changes, which we can get into if we want to. Those were a little bit more problem solving. But then we also want to do just fun, surprising stuff like the beacons and the Titans, which also are still rooted. You know, one of our core philosophies that I've worked through the design team is that pretty much everything needs to have a bit of a problem solution type of format. We need to have a good answer of why are we adding this to the game, right? And if it's like, oh, I don't know, it just seems cool, like that's not a good answer, right? And I think I love how Hi-Rez does things with the way we write our patch notes, the way we do the patch show, because we reinforce that messaging extremely frequently. And players hold it to us, People are still quoting back to me that we're not allowed to give our Cirquette free crit because we took away Artemis's in season 5 or whatever, even though crit has been pretty much completely reworked since then. But, we'll get past that later. I think it makes a lot more sense in today's context. But reinforcing those messages to our players, that's really important. That's a big driver for our whole design process. That's a big driver for how we're going to make exciting things. And we try to do a combination, right? Season of Souls had a lot of addressing some key problems that we feel like the community was constantly bringing to us, and also had a whole lot of really exciting new high spectacle new features that also solved other problems, but potentially problems that the design team was more keen on than the players, or depending on your player archetype, you might have been feeling more of a pain point here than other players were.
Exactly, yeah. And one of my things, go with me on this ride really quick. So it's going to be a little bit exciting. One of my favorite things about this new seasonal structure is how we've been able to just theme Smite a little bit better, not only through content, but through gameplay around a specific idea. So like when I think of 10.1, 10.2, Season of Monsters, we had Surtur and Martyr Chorus, and like the meta really reflected aggression and pressure and lots of fighting, and that really resonated with me. And then we move on to Season of Hope, and there's still a little bit of fighting, but Ishel's introduced. She's got some destruction elements to go along with that, but also brings healing, which we incorporated healing reworks. And now into the Season of Souls, we've got Caron in, we've got gameplay mechanics around death, of course, but when I think about Caron, and he's been guiding souls through the River of Styx for eons, right? His route is carefully planned and charted, and everything that he does is meaningful and purposeful. And I think with the new gameplay mechanics, specifically in Conquest, I feel like people really haven't started playing around some of these new objectives purposeful or meaningful yet. I know one of the things that was super exciting about Titans Unleashed is some of these new meaningful and purposeful splits that could be created with the map. So I'm really excited for us to continue to do that. And I know, AJ, you've been working with the design team on just the overall meta of Season of Souls. So I know we talked about just a short little update about Season of Souls. We've been in it about a week now. Kind of how are things landing?
All right, I have 3 quick things I want to go through.
Cool.
First is, Isaiah, you nailed it. It's kind of the first part about alignment. It's often referred to as tone or theme. When I was going through school, that's what my professor referred to it as tone. Games tend to be successful when they align, when your gameplay and your art style and your narrative and your supporting features outside the game, your community, your marketing, all align and work together. And when there's as minimal mismatches, that's when things tend to feel the best, right? That's why, if you made a Dark Souls style game that had Slime Rancher style art, like that's kind of funny and cool because it's subverting expectations, but that's going to turn a lot of people away, because people who want to play a Dark Souls game look at that and go, I'm not interested in that. Right, yeah. People who, oh, that's cute, I'm going to try to play it, and then they're dying repeatedly on the first boss. They're going to have a bad time, right? So alignment is key. The second note was solving a meta. Players tend to often consider things are solved much earlier than they actually are. Yeah. So, but we are not in the business of telling players they are wrong. It's always up to us to approach the situation from, okay, what do people feel like is solved already? How can we subtly encourage them to explore some new things? Can we just go ahead and balance out the parts that are solved instead of the whole thing? Is it responsible to just hold off and wait on making any changes until they see if it adapts on its own, right? So it's really about us working with that feedback, not to try to push back against it, but to plan our future designs, our future balance patches, our future features to work with it. Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about the Seasons of Souls, just God meta, right? And we hinted about this a few times earlier on the podcast. So I spent a bit of time this morning and last night going through some things about 10.6 Season of Souls. So mages are terrible, right? Mages are out. Mages are done. The win rate in mages in Conquest was 50.696%. I'm not joking. These are actually the numbers. And in 10.6, it is 50.699. So only 0.003% difference. Wow. Barely changed. Overall, mages are still, doing well, but they feel different, right? So there are other important things to note. So I went through and I kind of clocked a bunch of other kind of key stats. So Conquest, the average game did get slightly longer, from 31.5 minutes to 32.5 minutes. That was not our intent. We were trying to actually add some more snowball to the game, add some more ways. So that's something we're going to continue looking at. I don't think people feel like the games are excessively long, but they did get a little longer. We walked back some snowball features. We nerfed them. The Cyclops chest, we nerfed the shutdown, and then we added some new objectives that you can fight over that would give you a lead. Conquest early surrender is at its lowest percentage in Smite history.
Wow. Which is probably the single most important metric for us.
Correct.
Because we feel like when people are surrendering early, it's a sign that they see themselves in an unwinnable game and they're not having fun anymore. Right? And generally people don't surrender from games where they're having fun and they feel like they can still win.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's one of our most important metrics is like if you are the last time we had a really bad meta, it was
really high early. Really high. That was essentially pre 9.5, right? 9.5 was a really big change for that. So Conquest average kills went down a little bit from 61 per game, that's across all 10 gods, to 58.5. So a pretty small change. As far as people saying people don't die, people are too tanky, it's a very small change actually on kills overall. And we're in this unique spot where people are saying the game's not snowbally enough. We really haven't had that feedback much in the years of Smite, so we're still trying to look to ways to walk that back. So that's one thing we're going to keep working on in the future. As far as other god metas, so surprisingly, the overall win rate boosts. Guardians have gotten the biggest one, generally, the biggest boost from 10.6. Assassins also got about a similar amount. Warriors, a very small increase. Mages, a very small decrease. And then Hunters, the biggest decrease. So I think that doesn't quite align with community feedback. Doesn't mean players are wrong, right? What I'm doing is I'm looking. So when we see data like this and it doesn't quite align with what we're hearing, then I go start looking at the supporting charts. So the thing I went to next was deaths and average damage. Those are other ways that I can, my team can kind of assess how bursty is the meta, who is getting kills against who, how are things working out that way. So actually fun. This also doesn't align with player feedback. When we were looking to this data, Assassins, Hunters, and Mages, the squishies, are dying significantly less in 10.6 than they were in 10.5, whereas tanks are dying about the same number of times. So maybe it takes tanks longer to kill them in 10.6,
right?
But actually a lot of the power reduction from 10.5 to 10.6 had a really big impact on the squishy versus squishy burst, which was one of our main goals. I think people kind of lost sight of that because on top of that goal, we did a whole bunch of new fun tank items and new fun tank buffs and stuff like that, which really did add a lot more to the tanks. But that power reduction, going into it, my team knew and predicted and designed it in the fact that it would keep mages from one-shotting each other, right? And instead make them 2 or 2.5 shot each other, right? We weren't trying to make huge changes here, but enough to feel it and enough to make it feel a lot better than what people were saying, which is like, oh, I just step out of position for 1 second and I'm insta-dead, right? So we saw that happen, but tanks actually are dying at about the same rate as they were before. And the 30% versus the 15% adjustment was all part of the planning. We did a lot of testing versus in dev versus live to see how long does it take to kill tanks, and it really wasn't that different. The difference now is on damage output, right? This is probably the one people, after going through this whole process and looking at player feedback, win rate, players wouldn't really buy that. Kills and deaths, players still wouldn't buy that. I'm still essentially telling them they're wrong with these numbers right now. Then we get to damage, right? So mages actually did lose the biggest amount of damage per game, followed by Hunters with a very small loss in damage per game. Assassins actually got a slight increase in damage per game. Warrior and Guardians, big increase in damage per game, right? That's one of the main things people are feeling.
Yeah.
So, after assessing through this whole, all this data and looking at a lot of the feedback, I saw going back to the day in the life section, probably one of the first things Alex does too is when I get to work, I usually check social media.
Yeah, check Reddit.
It's a good way to get your day going.
Is it really? Yeah.
So I go check Reddit, and there was one post today that was praising how good the meta is. There was another post hating on the meta, but the top comment in that thread was, no, this is actually really balanced. I know people are saying mages are struggling, but builds like this, do this, Soul Reaver, more percent pen, E-Staff, things like that, or, maybe E-Staff's more of a Guardian item, but these are solo Guardian item, depending. But these are these things that you can use against them, and it works. Yeah. And people are starting to really like it. But some people take longer to learn than others, right? So we're seeing that shift in real time where day one, people were like, oh, mages are dead, just completely dead, and tanks are insane. But as we've given it time to breathe, we're seeing that slowly reverse itself. And I think people are being really positive about the meta. But still, spoiler to bonus, we are going to be doing a little bit of mage anti-tank buffs, and we are going to be doing a little bit of guardian and warrior damage output nerfs. Right? So that's a
little bit of spoiler from Ajax. But
yeah, that's just a glimpse into the whole process of how we essentially analyze gameplay balance data, check it against the community feedback, work through our cascading sets of
processes. We talk about it all the time, AJ. Perception versus reality and trying to find the middle ground, right?
Right.
I remember years ago you telling me about how you just kept buffing Arachne despite the fact that she's overpowered at every level, but people just refuse to accept that she's overpowered.
Right. If we want to get into that that's the early philosophy I spun up on the SMITE design team was that perception over reality. So the examples were Thoth launched at like a 30% win rate, like the worst god in the history of SMITE in any given time ever. So we were like, okay, we'll just buff it. And everybody hated us because the perception was just not that he was bad. The perception was, SMITE players tend to perceive gods at their best, not at their averagest. Which makes sense. Those are the parts that are more memorable. That's when you're getting crushed. You remember that but this is negativity bias. This is a whole This is normal psychology. It's not crazy. And then we had a lot. What are these gods? Hades or someone was the best god. I'll just nerf him. Everybody hated that too. So we're like, okay, hold up. It's not this simple, right? You can't just look at win rate in a vacuum. You got to compare perception versus reality. You got to look at pick ban rate in ranked is one of the best ways to analyze what the players think is the best, because that's essentially they're voting with their gameplay.
What they don't want to play.
They're picking what they don't want to play against or what they're going to try to play. That's what they think is the strongest in the game. So and you have to contrast that against win rate and damage and other stats to kind of make those decisions. So at multiple points in the game, we have buffed the strongest god in the game and received universally positive feedback. And we have also nerfed the worst god in the game and received universally positive feedback. So, there's a lot of interesting things you can do in how to bridge the gap between the perception and the reality, and how to be clever as designers to really, our goal is we want to deliver what people want from us, right? But it's hard to please everyone. So you have to find these compromises and targeting specific things in different ways to try to make sure you give something for everyone or hit as many maximum positives as possible. It might be impossible to be 100% positive on any balance patch, but the difference between 90 and 95% positive is still a big difference. The difference between 50% positive and 50 or 60, still a big difference. It's worth every extra percentage point we can get to make people that 1% more positive on a patch than the last patch. I'm happy.
And that segues to my next topic. Speaking of things that how we try to deliver something for everybody, what people want. I want to talk a little bit about, planning the God lineup. Ooh. I know that's something that players are always interested in.
Yeah.
The Build a God panel is always super well received when we do it at SWC. Yeah. And I know how we think about the God roster for any given year of SMITE. It's more than just, okay, let's write names down a list. I know there have been jokes, so we're just going to throw out a dartboard for a little bit. But no, there's a lot of community feedback that goes into it. I know literally anyone on the Titan Forge team can contribute to that discussion, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. We're planning. Players see it released at one at a time, but we're planning the whole roster together, right? So the God number one of this year has its own strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to have a God later in the year that counteracts those weaknesses with its own strengths, right? And in a way to try to, and we're kind of designing, oftentimes when we're planning this whole thing as a package. Yep. How is this all going to work together? How is this all going to flow together?
Yeah, and it's, it's a mix of, obviously you got to hit different classes.
Yep.
You have to hit different pantheons.
Right.
You have to weigh what the most vocal player base wants to see.
Right.
You have to weigh what is an interesting surprise that they maybe aren't expecting, right?
Right.
Some of our most successful gods have actually been ones that the community was not asking for, like Danza
This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Danzaburo was amazing. I tell stories about Danzaburo all the time. How one of the most successful gods in SMITE history, and no one ever heard of him or asked for him or wanted him, or by name ever. Yep. But once we delivered it, people were just like, yep, okay, I want that, right? There was no one asked for this type of thing, even though no one did. But it was just executed so well that everyone's like, oh, okay, I'm in.
Still one of my favorite gods to this day.
Yeah.
So good.
Cthulhu also, and Arthur and Merlin also fall into those categories. All really successful gods.
I think that there's also so we're balancing, like I said, class, pantheon,
body type, creature, male, female creature.
And I think that the other thing that's incredibly important is we have to have an idea to interpret this god in Smite in a way that's really new and exciting, right? There are some names that keep coming up on community most requested lists that we've talked about a lot internally, and every time we throw together a kit, just kind of brainstorming for them, or like, oh, what would this god do? It's like, well, that's kind of the same as this other god. It's like, oh, well, the thing this god's, I don't know. Like, what can we do to add something new to the game? And I think that's really important with every god, especially when we're at what?
And it's only getting harder.
124.
It gets
124.
It gets mathematically more difficult every single god we add, because a lot of decisions are being made around what haven't we done, and that pool is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah. So we usually do plan as much as we can an entire year at once. And the flow of things and how things go together.
End of the year is usually left a little bit open and flexible because
there's almost always a god added or removed towards the end of a year as things.
Which is why we actually chose this year to not even preview like the very end of year 10. We just cut it off early, so people don't really know what's happening at the end of year 10. Because at the time, we didn't feel sure enough ourselves, right? Because we've had the last 2 years we did that, it had to change it.
Yes.
So this year we're like, we'll just leave it more of a mystery, and then we're figuring it out now, or then figuring it out now. Now we're a lot more prepared for it.
Yeah. So I guess I would say that there's a lot of things that we weigh, and it's again different groups of players, right? One of the other things that we have to consider is like historically in the summer we've tried to release a god that is more wide, broad appeal to. Be more of kind of like a win-back opportunity, be an exciting character as our box art on the consoles and on Steam, which may sound really unimportant, but it's one of the biggest things that drives people being interested in the game. Oh, that guy looks cool, I want to play that game, right? And the most successful example of this in the history of Smite, by a lot, was Cthulhu. When we...
no, sorry, go ahead.
I know there was a lot of... debate in the community about whether
active petitions against Cthulhu ever being in the game, and now he's measurably the most successful god we've ever made.
Yeah, without a doubt. It led to the most new player acquisition, the most discussion, still one of the most played guardians in the game. And I think that a lot of discussion in that god particularly was around like, how do we handle his release? We put out a statement on Reddit explaining the way that we approached it and our
I think
thoughts.
we even did some additional messaging in the Closer Look blog.
Oh, a lot of extra actually.
So sometimes when we take risks like that, it really pays off. Sometimes it is a little bit less payoff. But I think that going back to what I said earlier, right? Like we want there to be a reason to be excited to log into Smite every month. We want things to feel Smite. We don't want to add just some crazy person that doesn't belong in Smite at all. But in our internal discussions, we felt like Cthulhu fit for the reasons that we enumerated in our blog post. And it worked out really well for us. So.
Really interesting tangent on gods to me is how much range every god has. I'd say like there's a few rare exceptions, like maybe Shiva. But outside of that, even when we're usually spending a pretty large amount of time and effort to make sure we deliver on the expectations of that god. We still have a lot of things we could do that are all very different from each other that all could still do that. So like I used to think of certain gods as like boring because their lore is not very boring, their depictions are not very interesting, they don't do anything super specific. There's a couple of the most community requested ones that I would still say are on that list. But at this point, over the years, I don't think we really consider them boring anymore. We consider them blank slates, which is actually great because that means we can do really cool, weird, fun stuff because their lore is very flexible, they don't have to do this thing, and if that's not in there, then people are mad. We can kind of make them do whatever we want, and that's actually really exciting now. And then every god, even when a god is more clearly defined, there's still a lot of range on what level to interpret them. And a lot of Smite's history, me and Alex, or more so maybe starting with me, I'm doing a lot of the initial pitching on, okay, this god, we're going to stay very to the books. Here's why I think that, because it aligns with the gameplay, aligns with the expectations, whatever, versus this god, we're going to do something very different. So like Morgan Le Fay, I think, is a good example. I personally was pushing really hard for, like, let's not just do another standard robed staff sorceress character. Every RPG has got a billion of them. Smite already has many mage women like that already. I was like, let's do something different, right? That still feels, so that's where I pushed for more of the armored, the regal, the sword, the spell sword,
chainmail,
but that was not an easy decision. There was a lot of people internally who did not want to do that, and we actually have some Morgan Le Fay concepts of her being much more the Morrigan looking, I suppose I'd say. But I was very concerned that it would just feel like another Morrigan or another Discordia, another Nuwa, another Aphrodite, evil Afro, whatever. So we've tried to really push and find some unique places. So the range is crazy, and every new god, I think, has a lot of room to explore. So at this point, with this concept in mind, I don't consider any god as being off the table. We could always find something to do, something within that. Danzborough actually came from the idea because I wanted a gun character.
Yeah.
I wanted to design a gun.
Not just Kuzubo. We need an actual gun
hunter. Yeah. But I didn't. Obviously, it's mythology. It's ancient. It doesn't make sense to have anything too modern. We don't want anything too serious. Obviously, nothing military. So we were like, ancient fireworks. That makes a lot of sense from Chinese and Japanese mythology that came about, and then putting it on an even more comedic character fit really good for the Smite tone, where you don't really have, like, I don't think, a serious gun guy would have been nearly as fun as what we came up with. So I don't know. That's just, I think, a really interesting way to think about all the different ways we can do any god, and what we're always trying to look for new things, trying to find room to explore, but always still trying to meet those expectations of what people are excited for the character they've already heard of or learned about elsewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, we've talked a lot. We got a few minutes left, and I want to dig in. And I want to hear more about some of you y'all's just personal experience. And I love asking this question to everybody who comes on the show. But what's some of the favorite things that you've worked on? I know, Alex, you've worked on countless things on the Smite side. I know the fun fact is he was a big contributor in our first crossover with Bob Ross and AJ.
Yeah.
You've done countless things at Titan Forge in your time on Smite. I know it's hard to put you on the spot.
Your, stat sheet numbers you were just picking up. You were just doing about how many patches we've shipped. How many, Alex is just running through like a Smite by the numbers, and it's crazy. But no, I've designed myself like 13 gods, and then led the team for some 52 more or something like that, and then every balance patch every season. It's a long list.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm the most proud of. I'm gonna give you two completely different answers.
Cool.
So one would be probably Ruby. Ruby was the first real crossover that we did, and that was something that was kind of for me. I was the one who came up with the idea and was really pushing for it. I was doing some research. I was working on the brand side at the time. And I found that there was a pretty big crossover in interest between Smite players and Ruby, and reached out to the folks at Rooster Teeth, made the deal happen, convinced the Titan Forge team that it was worth following my crazy idea here, because we had, other than Bob Ross, we had never really done anything like this before, and committing 4 skins and an entire battle pass to this is a big commitment for the team. It went really well, and I think most of the credit goes to the team for executing on the skins. Like I started the business conversations, and then they just knocked it out of the park.
Right? It's a good example and illustrative of our roles, where like looking for those industry trends, looking for opportunities, and then Alex was also spending time with making pitches, working through the plans with the developers about how we can execute it, getting people gradually on board. Right, that's a lot of what we do.
Yep. And then the other completely unrelated thing from, like I said, I started out more on the marketing side of the business. I did the Smite on PS4 launch. kind of soup to nuts. And that was just a really rewarding thing for me at that point in my career because I love SMITE so much. I still love SMITE so much. And to be largely responsible for launching it on an all new platform and all the challenges around that. Like I was, uploading the translations to the PlayStation backend and booking the ads and basically doing the whole thing. We had a very small marketing team at the time.
Right.
So I was very pleased with how that turned out, especially given there was a lot of competition at the time. And it was just very personally fulfilling to run that campaign. That's
awesome.
So.
What about you, AJ?
So I have a couple things that come to mind that are different categories. So one that I'm especially proud of is the stars system, Mastery Stars.
Yeah.
One of
that's
the
a great
first
one.
designs I ever did when I first joined the studio. Very young Ajax. It was like one page. It was very simple, but I was just like, I saw this. I got on the team. No one necessarily told me what to do or how to do it. I was just like, whenever I get a god to diamond, I stop playing him and I play a new god. And I want to keep maining my guardians I was a big main of. I want to keep playing Ares. I want to be incentivized to do that.
Right, yeah.
So I made this simple one-page design, very simple. We're just going to make this infinitely expanding system that just looks ridiculous as it gets. And the UI team implemented it. It was really like a small, simple thing. It's like still drives a lot of people's hunger to play
Get those
Smite.
stars.
And it was just a tiny little offhand design when I was a god designer, so I wasn't really doing a lot of other systems design, but I was just like, let's make this happen. I want to make this happen. I can't remember if that was when I was first hired or when I was first became lead. I don't remember, but sometime. And so I'm still really proud of that one.
Did you know that on Xbox there's an entire club or community devoted to people showing off how many stars they have on their gods in Smite?
No, that is
It's great.
insane.
Yeah,
I have to check that out.
You gotta check it out.
I've seen the infograph that shows people what it looks like. Like someone demoed it. Like this is what it looks like when you have 3 and then 5 and then 100, 500, 5,000. It starts to become just a blur.
It's
so I'm always really proud of that. I mean, I think outside of that, things I'm really proud of is the team. So as a lead designer and a design director, what's more important, almost more important than the game, is how the team is doing.
Yeah.
And that's because a good team makes a good game, right? It's not that I'm saying, it's not like I have to pick between the two. They are connected in that way. So just to see the designers that I've worked with grow and become such skilled, strong designers, and same, people that we've worked with on other teams, that's really rewarding process and something to be really proud of. I think overall we've built a lot of really strong teams, really strong departments, people who are still here working for us who are fantastic, and people who have left who have gotten extremely exciting job offers and things like that to other studios to show that the work we're doing here is valuable. It is competitive. If Riot and Blizzard are poaching people from us, that's not a bad problem to have. It means that we're good. We're good at things, and our people are good at things, right? Obviously, we try to retain as many as we can, but there's many factors that play into that. So just proud of how many amazing, strong developers we've generated over the years.
Yeah, cool.
Dan Zaburo pitch is another one that I do bring up a lot because I really did just spearhead that one out of nowhere. And
I wasn't sold on it. I thought that because there are a lot of things about Dan Zaburo that are generally lower performing traits to a character. But you were so passionate about it. You're like, no, guys, it's going to be great. And I was like,
great.
Part of my pitch was we can make a XYZ that doesn't perform. We can make it perform. I know we can.
I think
we just weren't doing it right on the previous versions.
I think the thing that really sold me on it was, Tina screeching about how we were going to handle certain aspects of his anatomy. So,
sometimes you just get a feel from the team too when you pitch something that
you can feel the energy, right?
Right, and there's certain gods that obviously people are interested and excited about. Like, oh yeah, I get we're doing Morgan Le Fay. Like that's cool, I understand it. But that's not the same as Trolley, Tanuki, Gun Hunter, where people are just like, oh my god, I cannot wait. Like there is tiers, so that one's up there too. The Conquest reworks, always big challenges, always tough.
just done too much. You got too many.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd say keeping those things at the top. Those are the top. If I just cut myself off. Oh, the Magic crossover.
Oh yeah. We're all big Magic players.
Yeah, I've been a Magic player.
We can talk about Magic for the next hour.
I'm a really old school
Break out the
Magic
Commander
player.
decks. Let's
Still
play.
playing. Yeah, I played a Commander with Isaiah last week. Alex is going to play with us tomorrow.
Yeah, I dug out my decks. So. I have not been playing much since I have been here in Georgia. But
we're going to get you back into it.
Exactly.
I've been playing forever, on and off, been really into it for the last 5 or so years, and I made the initial pitch deck to send to Wizards, and Bart brought it over, and Bart came back and told me that they said this was the best pitch deck they've ever seen like this. Like, And it was actually still pretty ugly. I didn't do a lot of the visual updates to it, but I think that they really appreciated the content and the attention to detail. So, and I think the execution on those skins turned out really well.
Fantastic.
I think that one of the things that we're just generally good at as a group is that everybody that works at Titan Forge is super passionate about what they do, right? And you can see it in our crossovers, especially because when we first reach out to these big groups, right, that have hundreds of people asking them every day about, oh, hey, can I license your characters for T-shirts or whatnot? You know, we come to them with these really deep presentations that show the level of thought and attention that we put into this about, like, this character would map onto this character because he did this one thing in this one episode. And we really understand who these characters are, and they really appreciate that passion.
And I've still seen news articles writing content about Avatar. Completely unrelated to us. They use our splash art sometimes because they're just Googling and looking for what they think looks the best, and they're picking our art. And we had lots of our players and players of other games saying that the 3D animated representations of the Avatar characters in Smite are the best ones they've seen in any game, right?
Which is awesome. It's very
and like seeing those types of comments about our work and passionate is important to distinguish. Like, a lot of times passion in game dev gets thrown around in a lot of different contexts, but I think for what it means for us is that people care about their work and they really pay attention and try to execute to their very best, not because they're feel like they need to or have to, but because they want to, because they care about it, because they're invested in it personally. That leads to a lot of our best stuff.
Yeah. Well, Alex, AJ, we're at the end of our show.
Are we
thanks so much.
We should have had more time to go off topic.
Right? Maybe next
all
time
the podcasts I listen to are at least 50% of just making fun of each other and like talking about other random stuff.
We'll have to have you both back on for no outline, no questions. We just hang out.
We're both big talkers, so you could have given us a single bullet point. We would have filled the whole time with it.
That's true. We both long talkers.
Yeah.
So
if the community, for our watchers and listeners, want to find you on social media and maybe ask you any follow-up questions, where can they find you?
Yeah, I am at Kilgoon on Twitter. Apologies that you will have to suffer a lot of Oakland A's tweets. But other than that, I do mostly tweet about Smite.
Yeah, and I'm at Hi-Rez Ajax on Twitter. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Although, I do go on Reddit occasionally too. But Twitter's always the best. But yeah.
Is it the best, though?
It's the easiest way. Easiest way,
yeah. We can make that so way.
To get in quick contact, at least, it's most likely I'll at least glance at your comment even for a second. I mean, if it's especially rude, then
be nice. If you're hitting up, anybody that's on the podcast or any devs in general. I know there's some discussion, I forget who was the dev, from Legends of Runeterra. There's a big thread about,
being polite,
being respectful. That's the best way to engage with us and get conversation.
Honestly, I feel like the Smite community has come a long way over the years, and we don't encounter that type of stuff that much anymore. Obviously, you're going to get some amount of it. The algorithms are stacked against it. You got new people coming in all the time. But in general, Smite players out there, much love. I think in general they really understand where we're coming from. They know we're trying to do the best we can. They know that we're open to hearing from them. So I think in general it stays positive. But yeah, I wish we could just talk more about random stuff. We got to wrap up right at the end of the hour.
All right.
Exactly.
Even though the esports team before us got to go 15 minutes over.
Right? They went over.
They stole 15 minutes of my podcast. Okay, for that reason, I'm going to give you a 15-minute story of how the Phyrexians came to be. Okay, so first of all,
cool. Well, Alex, AJ, thanks so much for coming on. I had a pleasure talking with you. I feel like I always learn something new whenever I talk with you. Both super knowledgeable about the industry, about Smite in general, and it's just fun talking with you all.
It is. It is fun.
Glad to officially have my new role out there, and hopefully in the community you'll see me out more and more. I'll have to change my Twitter bio to actually say what my job is now and whatnot. So
most definitely,
it'll be fun.
Yeah. Well, for everybody out there watching right now on Twitch or listening to us out there on your preferred platform, thanks so much for tuning in to episode 2 of the Smite podcast. If you want to hear more of these, hit me up at Isaiah the Sage on Twitter. If you have more teams that you're interested in hearing from about what they do on Smite and Titan Forge, shoot me a message on Twitter. I want to keep doing these more often because I think it's really great to just introduce the community at large to all the amazing members of the Titan Forge team.
Tell your friends that the Seasons of Souls meta is perfect.
Yeah, yes, spread the word. Season of Souls meta is perfect. You heard it here first. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you on the very next episode, but until then, see you later.
Abandon all hope! Stygian curse! Pay the toll or face the Ferryman's wrath!
Your end is here!
The underworld calls! For I will guide you. A new world is waiting.
Happy Thursday, and welcome to the SMITE Update Show 10.7 for our boy, Caron the Ferryman, the mighty boatman. We love him, we're excited about him, and we're happy to have you here. I'm Titan Dandy, for those who do not know me, and I can't talk, obviously, and I'm joined by two of my incredible co-workers here, Lermy and Clumsy. You know them, you love them.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, y'all excited to be here?
Oh, freaking excited.
You excited for the boat? This is your baby.
This is my baby.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk about him, but we're not going to talk about him just yet.
We're not there yet. So let's dive straight into some stuff, starting with a huge update, or a huge announcement that we've already made once, but we do have a little video we can show y'all about what we're excited about here. Let's check it out.
An absolutely incredible weekend of SMITE.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in, for making this possible, for celebrating SMITE with us. You can be here in cosplay as well.
Oh, he's not like he's nowhere! He can get Oh my God! Untouched! Unscathed! Bow down to your king! The Camelot King! Champion of the world!
That's right, everybody. Get excited all over again for another amazing SMITE World Championship. Happening in the same place as last year. We fell in love with the energy, with the venue, with everybody we saw there, and we thought, let's run it back, but better this year. Better every year. That's how it goes. So for year X, SMITE at year 10, we're super excited to come back to Arlington, Texas for another amazing SMITE World Championship. So keep an eye out. Tickets go on sale next week, the 12th. Pretty sure that's a Wednesday, 12 p.m. ET. So, and you better get them. Last year they were gone. Like, we were sitting here like, yeah, we're excited, announcements out. And then we looked and we're like, no tickets. There are none. They're a myth. So make sure you hop on that ASAP, because it's going to be another incredible year, and we cannot wait to show you what all we have in store and how we've made it better year over year. So continuing down that line, though, we have esports events between now and then. The World Championships are going to be huge, but there's more to look forward to between now and January of next year. And there's just all kinds of stuff. Between now and the end of summer, we have some amazing events going on, and plenty for y'all to check out and watch. You can learn more about it at smiteproleague.com, get all the tasty deets, see when the dates are, and hang out with us and continue to watch our journey to Worlds. One last thing to talk about are just a few quality of life changes that we've made for this particular update, one of which is related to the HUD. Specifically, the Demonic Pact HUD theme is now available on old HUD and new HUD. So if you have it on the old HUD, keep using it. You're still using it. If you prefer the new HUD and you have that the Demonic Pact HUD theme, you can use it now too. So we told y'all we were going to start working on getting these updated. It's a lengthy process because HUD and UI are all incredibly crazy, but we're working on it and we're getting it. So there is one of them. The second thing I have to say is we've heard a lot of people talk about the Color Forge event and how it can be kind of hard, especially on console, to claim your free chests. So the Color Forge, color chroma dye chests. So it's easier now. It's easier now. You don't have to navigate down to that claim button. We made the process simpler because we heard what y'all had to say, and we were like, oh, we want them to have all of those, and we don't want it to be complicated. So thank you for your feedback. Like we always say on this show, it's invaluable, and it helps us make things better for us and y'all. So cool. That kind of comes to the end of that little section, and funny enough, kind of a good segue into the first bit of skins we're looking at. So we have one more Color Forge skin coming with this update. Let's go ahead and look at the card art. We have a Kukulkan skin.
Oh, nice.
He is so cool. He got like the horn. I love the mask face too.
Yeah, he's got this like kind of creepy look to him, but he also kind of looks sweet. He looks like he's going to be protecting the forest. There's another one of the Kukulkan skins that have hands, so that's always fun.
Right.
Oh, true. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, so super duper awesome. And again, this is part of the Color Forge event. So this will work with all of those different dyes that you are able to unlock by playing.
Yeah, Bubblegum Kukulkan.
Bubblegum Kukulkan. Super excited about that.
I'm a Midnight's fan myself.
Ooh, all right. I like that. I can respect it. So, but I mean, if for those of you who weren't here the first time, the Color Forge system and the dyes that come with it work to change not only the aesthetic of the skin itself, but the abilities, which is huge. So when you're playing this skin and throwing tornadoes and giant fire-breathing dragons, then
they're gonna look cool.
yeah, they're all gonna have colors and stuff. So yeah, super excited about it. Again, this will be a new Color Forge skin coming up with the update. From there, though, let's move on. We have some balance to talk about, I think.
Ooh.
Do we?
I mean, he's asking you. You're the designer, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I was like throwing you off for a second. I was like, no, we do. Don't worry. We've got like at least a little bit.
You're good. You're good. I posed that weird. Would you imagine? I've been so hyped for this. I didn't sleep last night. You know, I was sitting there like.
Who sleeps?
Oh, it's super I got my boat socks on, like super excited about
He's
it.
ready.
So anyway, balance, right?
Balance.
We came out of a lot of balance from the last update.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was huge. So now we're able to come back and fine tune some of the things that maybe got missed if there's a million things you did. Like it was.
We miss things?
No, you don't ever miss things. I miss things like socks, shoes, and SMITE.
Hey, you're wearing them today. We're good.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, I'm over here dancing in circles. Let's get into some conquest.
Yeah, let's
about it. So just in general, Unleashed Titans getting a little bit of a change up, right?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So we heard the feedback that the Titan fights can be a little bit lackluster sometimes, and we're trying to encourage a more active choice in terms of actually participating in these fights by making the Unleashed Titans give local golden XP rather than global golden XP. And so you might say, well, that's kind of just less gold across the map. And, technically it is, but it is going to incentivize you to actually go and do it because the reward for those Conquest Titans, or the Unleashed Conquest Titans to die, was very, very big before. So I wanted to make it a little bit more purposeful.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's something that would happen when the Unleashed Titans, right? It's a very scripted point of the game.
Yeah.
Both teams, the Titans would die eventually, and both teams would get that influx of reward no matter where they are.
Yeah.
But now with them being local, like when we said, it's going to incentivize as a team trying to probably be by the Titan fights.
Exactly.
It's still not a necessity. If you want to do like Fire Giant instead or something, that might be the better play. But if you're fighting by those Titans, you're now going to be able to get the local reward. And the other thing that actually means is that if one team is ahead and pushes the other team off of the Titan and kills the Titan, they might end up being like a little bit more of a snowball factor, right? Because the other team isn't there to get that local reward.
Yeah.
So while the reward is smaller overall because it's going to be local and shared, it's now a little bit more purposeful.
Exactly.
And like you said, it's cool because it adds that. It adds that choice, the intensity of choice. Do I go get that bonus by diving in and joining with the Titan fight and getting that gold, or are we more incentivized to take a Gold Fury, a Fire Giant, or to siege an opposite lane? So it really does. It puts that decision making higher up on the tier list, and I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Next up, one more conquest change. So Soul Surges, lots of stuff going on with those massive bubbles with ghosts and movement speed and death timers outside of Conquest. So what's happening with those?
Yeah, so the Soul Surges are one of the new seasonal mechanics alongside the Unleashed Titans. This one is on all the different game modes.
Yeah.
We've seen pretty mixed reception, like let's be honest here. And one of the main things is also not just the zone effects itself, which have been honestly pretty fine and stable. We actually think the movement speed is something we wanted to tone down a little bit because we saw a lot of complaints about just movement speed across the board getting a little bit too crazy. The minions is something that we addressed once. We're going to continue looking at them and addressing them again. We want to assess how this is going to feel going into the next season, if we want to keep them, if we want to remove them, the surges or the minions specifically. And so this is just a next pass on seeing if we can alleviate some of the concerns, some of the frustrations, decrease their health scaling a little bit more, decrease their movement speed. So they're actually not going to get to you as quickly. I think even their range is toned down just a little bit too.
Yeah.
So that way, just like if you're trying to get around a corner, if you're trying to leave, if you're trying to just even farm minions and just ignore the spirit minions, that's okay. They might not chase you down as hard.
That's handy. I've definitely had my back stopped a time or two, and I'm like,
Only a couple times.
Caron, come get your boy.
Yeah.
So, but that's this update.
This update he will be doing.
Exactly. That's what I've been waiting for. So, all right. Well, that does it for conquest changes. But let's get into some items, huh? Starting with prophetic cloak. You're getting a little bit of work done.
Yes, this was another community request, and in the last patch, if you guys will remember, we talked a lot about adjusting these protection values, all that good stuff. This was an item that was a very common community discussion point where we did not decrease these to just see, where the numbers fell, because a lot of change at once is, of course, a lot of change. It's sometimes really hard to diagnose, okay, is it actually going to be that difficult to get to this protection threshold value for prophetic specifically? And the answer was yes, it was. So we're going to be decreasing those thresholds by just a little bit, 75 at both thresholds. So from 400 to 325 and from 600 to 525. So a little bit, but it's going to be significant enough to where you're actually going to be able to get to those values relatively easily.
Got it. Well, next up looks like Silver Branch Bow has stacks, getting stacks on stacks.
Yeah, so this one's really interesting because during the power pass, alongside the protections one and everything that we did in the last season, Silver Branch was one that we looked at. And I mean, if you look at the pass, if you look at the cap stacks, it actually used to cap at 100. It used to give you, honestly, an absurd amount of power. But the thing is, you never really used to hit that cap. We saw a lot of discussion online, and one of the main reasons we brought it down to 20 is because that's still actually a very large amount of power, and it was meant to be a decision made so that Silver Branch could be picked up across a diversity of different types of hunters, right? It wasn't just for the stim hunters. It was ones that you wanted to just opt into attack speed. Maybe they had a small stim. Maybe they're getting Shogun's effect from their teammates. And it was kind of just going to be ubiquitously good amongst all the different hunters. Now, we saw the discussion that we saw was honestly kind of in contrary to that. We saw a lot of people that liked the fact that this was a little bit more niche or more specialized towards the attack speed stim hunters. And we kind of concede that point. I think that the team thinks that that's a fair reason to want to build Silver Branch Bow. It's not exactly the most meta item anyways, and if you want to exacerbate and make your item builds even stronger with this for attack speed stim hunters, that's fine too. Going from 20 to 40 isn't going all the way back to 100, but it is still an insane amount of power, especially with the new physical power on items. Honestly, it may be too much, but let's see how this feels with the new item builds, with those stim hunters, and then if we need to tone it down in different ways, we still can.
That's the name of the game. You throw it out there. Like we make estimates, we have the play test, but y'all really take it and run with it. And it's when y'all get your hands on it, and we get like thousands of games worth of okay, they're popping off a little bit.
The data does show us after that amount of tests, know, what it'll be.
So super cool. Next up, Toxic Blade, also getting a bit of a buff.
Yeah, this is just an underutilized item that even during the healiest of the heal metas during the season of Hope, it just wasn't picked up. And so we wanted to give it a little bit of love. And we're doing that in several ways. The first way is we're decreasing the cost, so it's just not as difficult to go into. Additionally, we are kind of squishing the amount of time it takes to get to that maximum anti-heal threshold. So what we're actually doing there is decreasing the max stacks by 1, increasing the anti-heal per hit, and then also increasing the attack speed buff and debuff per stack. So basically it's going to be about the same overall efficiency in terms of the total stats that you're getting, but it's going to be a faster happenstance.
Okay. So
it'll make it a little bit more useful.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to be stabbed by a toxic knife, so you know what? I feel that.
Any knife, really.
Yeah, true. Any knife. Don't stab me. So the last one in items is the glorious Pridwin, getting a bit of a nerf.
Yeah, so tank proc items have definitely been one of the main two things.
Pridwin popped off a little bit.
Yeah, Pridwin popped off. We saw, Medscore spike. We see a lot of different discussions, and it's something that we're going to be continuously addressing. One that we didn't quite hit in bonus balance because we just wanted just that much more time to have a look at it was a glorious Pridwin, the one that explodes twice. And this is the change that we're doing. The 10% difference from 75 to 65 is going to break it from not being in line with the other ones, but it's also happening twice. So overall, you're going to be getting more damage, unless the enemy gets out of the way, in which case they deserve to get a little bit of that.
Yeah. So technically you're losing 20% damage.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so not huge, but I mean still definitely threatening. I also love that the descriptor for that is the one that explodes twice. So anything,
a boom and a boom.
Yeah, anything that's described that way has to be good. So now let's dive into gods a little bit, starting with kind of a general change, not so much to a god, but to an array of gods across the mage variety.
So, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure.
I feel like you did.
Yeah. So the two main points that we had were the tank proc items, and that's something that we want to continuously look at. So we're not necessarily done with Glorious Pridwin. Maybe we need to address the other Pridwins. Maybe we need to have a look at like Gladiator Shield or some of the other items too. We want to keep that in mind. The other main topic that came out of the seasonal change was mages. Mages overall this year, it's been really interesting because we saw the change at the beginning of this year where hunters really weren't utilized, and then we saw double hunters crit going pretty crazy. And then
we had so many different metas this year already.
Yeah, it's been wild. It's been pretty intense. But the one thing that has generally been a theme is that mages have been underutilized, underperforming, and not as popular as before. And I think that's generally the case across most game modes too. Is that if you want to pick up like an ability hunter over mage, you still rather do that as well, even though they might need some help too.
Yeah.
Now with the mage power changes, with the power changes in general, mages also were hit a little bit more than hunters were, because hunters at least will have the in-hand attacks where they can kind of fill the downtime between their abilities. Mages, unless you're an auto attack mage or a basic attack mage, generally you don't see that as much, which is actually why we're seeing a little bit more all run and stuff like that, but we can come back to that later. So this change that we made was kind of one out of like 3 ways we could have solved the same issue, which is, we could solve divide items and tone back a little bit on all the items for mages, which would have just kind of flown in the face of what we were doing in the first place to reduce them. We could have looked at specific items that they needed and just added a little bit more power there, but then that kind of just puts a little bit too much emphasis on items that like we're choosing for the community, or like it just makes build paths that might be more important than other ones if we're not doing all the items, right? So it's hard to just pick and choose like, okay, well, we're just making this the item build that you go for now.
The meta item,
The mage class bonus actually solves this exact problem that we have in the exact way that we want it to. I know that like the community hasn't been super stoked about them per se, or they want some more interesting ones, but honestly, this is helping us really with the pressure valve that we needed. So mages are going to be gaining more power over the course of the game smoothly over time to an extra 20 by level 20.
Yeah, super handy. And I mean, what a great way to utilize that, right? Like bringing those in helped us diversify class roles, help specify what each class kind of help move them in the direction that they usually play without removing their ability to flex. But how nice to have that now after such a huge change. You don't have to start looking, what do we have to revert? You have another avenue. Like
it's just there.
Yeah, it's
you don't even have to think about it.
Between Soul Reaver still being pretty good, between the percent pen changes that we did do in Precipice in bonus, and also just in the season itself, going back to the previous amounts, mages should be in a healthier spot with this. We're going to keep monitoring as usual.
All the time. Like I said, as somebody who talks to y'all plenty but does not, I'm not like in the design world like y'all are, how you balance all of these things and juggle all of these. We have pin and crit and all this. It's flabbergasting. So
it's a lot of data. Round
of applause, y'all. Clappers in chat for these people. So cool. Well, let's get into some specific gods then, starting with not a mage, Amaterasu, getting a bit of a buff. No AJ here to you're out there, AJ.
Well, AJ's not here right now to be very excited
Psych
about
this one up,
right?
We've noticed that auto attack warriors a little bit are not doing as hot as their counterparts. Bluestone has been a very prominent part of the meta, and obviously you're not really building Bluestone on a basic attack warrior. So we wanted to give a little bit of help specifically with her clear, and so we thought about doing it on the mirror, but instead we're going to be doing it on Glorious Charge, so that it gives you a little bit of flexibility. All your eggs aren't in one basket, so it's going to be a little bit of a damage increase and a cooldown reduction as well by 1 second. So overall, just a little bit more help if you do want to full commit to that clear by dashing the wave with your shield up. You're going to be able to do that with a little bit more efficacy, especially towards the early game.
Got it. Sounds good. So next up, Bastet. Kitty got claws, I guess. What's going on there? Well,
Kitty's claws were like, trimmed a little bit from before.
That's true.
She's sharpening them up again. And honestly, that's what it comes down to. Is Bastet is always kind of, whenever she's good, she's a powerhouse in the early to mid game, and generally tends to fall off, especially unless she's like just getting ahead and she's snowballing. So just adding a little bit more power to the ticks of the Razor Whip should help her more towards the late game, and that's what we're really trying to aim for, is make sure she doesn't fall off so drastically. It's okay for gods to have strengths and weaknesses, but her weaknesses were pretty heavy into the late game.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and kind of an exact 180, we're going to the doghouse now for Cerberus getting a buff as
Good
well.
Old boy.
Yeah, Cerba has not been doing too hot across the board, and you would think he would again, from a healing meta, but he's fallen off quite a bit, and so we want to give him a little bit of health back. So what we're going to do is Paralyzing Spit is going to have a decreased cooldown, so it's going to stay the same at rank 1, but as you rank it up, it's going to go down, and this ability is notoriously relatively hard to hit, I would say, considering you have to hit all 4 of those little projectiles to get the stun, but it's going to be very helpful in terms of your lane clear. This could help you in solo or support, depending on what your matchup is looking like. And additionally, Ghastly Breath is also getting a cooldown decrease because, again, this is going to just depend on your matchup. Can Ghastly Breath get interrupted? You'll just have it up a little bit more often regardless of the situation, but it's not so punishing if it does get interrupted now.
Got it. Hey, always a fan of cooldowns, so... Raijin next up. I haven't heard a lot from Raijin recently, so
what a little drummer guy.
Let's reverse up. Go ahead.
Oh, all right. Well, so Raijin's kind of been the bottom of the tier list for a while, unfortunately for him.
My drummer boy.
But he does deserve a little bit of love. So this is going to be on Percussive Storm, which is his clear ability, giving it a little bit of extra scaling because, again, this ability does take a while to go off. He's got to go through the beats, right? He's got to respect the measures on the notes.
He can't rush the tempo.
Yeah, it's true.
So we want to just give him a little bit of extra reward there. 5% scaling per hit is pretty significant across the whole ability, but again, it does take time to go off, so it's not going to feel as scary as that sounds, right? Because again, you have the chance to juke it, but he just needed a little bit of help.
A little bit of love for the drummer.
That's where he gets it.
Next up, Tiamat, a buff
yeah.
as well.
This is the math one. Yeah,
There's another
feel
one later
free,
on. That's
feel
it.
free.
If you're wondering why, I was just
All
looking
you.
ahead. Yeah, so Tiamat is one out of 2 gods, and we're addressing them here as well. That, the community, again, was outcrying for a little bit of changes to their passives, because with the power shifts, again, blah, 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 like the numbers don't scale as well. You're getting less, you need more things. So we took that to heart. I think in both of these cases, it's more of kind of like a nod towards the community. It's not to making sure that this feels more fair. These gods might not necessarily need heavy buffs right now, especially in the SPL. Mages weren't doing so good. TMO was like kind of okay. Honestly, she's actually doing a little bit worse than the next one, which we'll get to. But the passive here is it's a 1% scaling change for magical power, which is going from 5% to 6%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the big number takeaways, you need 100 less magical power to reach the cap than you did previously. And that's pretty much more around the amount or more than we reduce from items across the board.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll help. Also, just a small description clarity concern there is that it was listed as 25% as the previous cap. It was actually working as 30% for a little while now. I didn't dig to find out exactly when, but there was an error sometime in the past. We fixed the description.
It'll happen.
It's always been a cap up to
Yay,
30%. So just a 1% power conversion there.
Yeah, it's like you said, 1% sounds so small when you say it, but then you blow it up to 100
It's like
power.
redress. Like I looked at the math. I talked to the programming team. I'm like, just want to make sure I'm not really messing this one up, right? It's like, no.
That's another thing these people do. They
ran the
it's
math
just
a few
the
times.
math. They'll be like, oh, yeah, well, the math behind it. And I really try to listen, and then, like, I just feel like I'm slowly going, like, yeah.
Listen, the math is complicated, but to be good at Smite, you don't have to know the math.
That's true.
You just gotta
To balance it, you got to know. That's why.
100 less magical power. We're good.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on to Uller, also
That's
getting
actually
a
pretty
buff.
spicy.
Yeah, this is a very, very cool
Very
buff, if you ask me. So Uller has been doing not so great lately. Ability Hunters overall, not so great.
Yeah,
But
they're not so
Uller
solid.
is the kind of character that lives on a very fine line where he's either incredibly very good or incredibly very bad. And right now he's unfortunately incredibly very bad.
What'll happen?
And so what we're going to do is that we have a small scaling buff here because, again, he does need a little bit more damage, especially because he is so power-oriented. He really does not build into that attack speed, basic attack style. He can work like that. He's just not as good like
not
that.
his usual thing.
Not his thing. So we are going to give a 10% scaling buff to Hail of Arrows, but also for his ultimate wield axes and wield bow, Uller is going to follow the trope of his other Norse counterparts that have stance switching, your Tyr and your Hel, and he's going to gain half of the benefits of the other stance. So your extra lifesteal, you're going to get some lifesteal and bow stance, and you're also going to get some attack speed and X stance.
Yep.
So it's going to be very interesting to see people use that. So I'm really excited for that.
Excited to see the plays start coming out. Uller's back in business.
Yeah, and also, like, while we did increase a little bit of damage, this spicier change doesn't just give him even more
Yes,
damage, right?
exactly.
It's a little bit of a utility. It's a little bit of a something different that helps round him out a little bit more because him being so heavily damaged and ability focused is obviously got him to
You
be
kind of you put him in a box, and when the box is crumpled up and torn, he's just bad. But we're trying to make the box at least a little bit bigger, so this whole surface area is not always as messed up.
draw
I'm trying to make
I
an
believe that analogy works. I believe it.
Yeah. We all got
Hell
it.
yeah.
So.
Excellent. Okay, good.
All right, so let's move on. We mentioned earlier above Allaran, who's also getting
Yes.
Yeah, all right. You want to do more math clumsy?
Oh, that's why I saw these two were opposite of each other, so
Hop
I went
on
ahead and
it.
took both. Also ones that I worked on, so I guess that's fun for me.
Yeah, this is your fault.
my bad. So yeah, Allaran, another one of the 2 gods, and one of the 2 mages specifically that we wanted to address with the power concerns, similarly like the same thing with Tiamat. Instead of the mitigations, also only in the ground stance for Tiamat, Allaran has the issue with his critical hit chance.
Yeah.
Now, I had this debate like back and forth with different people on, one, is it a necessity for an Allaran to hit the cap of crit chance? And in my honest opinion is I don't think you ever need to hit the cap. It's not a necessity for hunters to hit like critical hit chance. If you're getting towards it, that's what the cap is just there as a safety valve. That being said, the power changes have kind of pushed that conversation even further.
Yep.
So where it's now quite prohibitive to even reach like kind of close to the cap. So this time we've kind of reversed it on its head a little bit. We're actually for 2 reasons. We're changing the scaling from a 1% conversion for 10 magical power to 2%. Again, a 1% change, but what this really means is that you're going to be getting you need half the amount of magical power as you did to fulfill it to that passive. And that sounds like a pretty intense change from what we were talking about, but it also helps to kind of bridge the gap between that discussion that was kind of an issue, which is now you kind of are designed to be hitting critical hit, not just cap, but larger amounts of it. And now you can do that a little bit more easily. The threshold on the floor is also going to be decreased to make that, kind of ramp up into the game a bit faster. So now we're kind of expecting Oleron's to crit more often, and due to that, this is actually a little bit of a shift because Oleron's critical hit damage multiplier is being reduced from 1.5 to 1.3. That's another valve that we've used a lot to kind of increase or decrease Oleron's strength, and it's been very useful for us because honestly, whenever he gets a little bit too strong, that's what he kind of is featured to do the most, right? Oleron's critting is actually kind of one of his greatest strengths, other than his ultimate. So with those mechanisms in place, Oleron will be critting more often. It'll be easier to hit that crit chance cap or to large amounts, but the damage he'll be doing is going to be less. And the last thing as well is by doing it from 1% straight to 2% and not anywhere in between, it makes it still quite easy to understand for players playing with Oleron or against Oleron where he is on that crit hit chance cap. Because now you can just be like, oh, he's got 10 power, or whatever it may be. It's in increments of 10 again still without it being in decimals.
Got it. I mean, cool. Yeah, like you said, Oleron's a lot. Definitely not like out of the purviews of who I usually play, but I've played against a couple, and it's or had them on my team, and it's an interest. He lives kind of in his own area, I think. I mean, among magical attackers, but with that ult and the way that he handles his crit, it's definitely a very unique experience. So it's cool to see that he's being helped lean into that mechanic that's kind of exclusively his, while it's also not going to be completely crushing. So.
Yeah. So previously we were talking about buffs. Oleron is our first shifts. Now let's get into nerfs.
Oh,
Let's get to nerfs. All right.
We got some nerfs.
Starting off the nerfs, we have Achilles.
Yes, so we've heard the community sentiment around the changes that Achilles received in the 10.6 update. So I wanted to address one of the things that we talked about that we would possibly address in the future if we saw certain characters had outstanding bits. And that's the natural protections and power that are inside of God kits. And so Achilles, with Gift of the Gods, had free protections, had free power. So we're just knocking that down a little bit. A little bit.
Toning it down.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, yeah, good to hear. Achilles, every time he executes me, I'm like, go away. I don't care how hot you are in your giant long
Very.
Very. Very hot.
That skin. Yep.
It's great. All right, so next up on the nerf list, Hachiman.
Yeah, I mean, Hachiman got some pretty spicy changes to his passive, and they were just a little bit too spicy, so we're toning that down a little bit. The amount of attack speed that he got, for free as something new was a little bit too high. We're cutting that in half, which is still providing him a lot of attack speed, but not nearly as much as it was.
It's still more than nothing that he had before.
Exactly.
True. Finding that happy little medium.
Yeah.
So. Next up on the nerf bucket, we have Ravana getting a little bit of nerf. Ravana's been scary.
Yes, this is another character that we've heard quite a lot about from the community. So we do think that this shield change, did help him quite a lot. It makes him very viable in tanky roles, especially when he can just keep punching away, keep getting more shields. So we do like that he is feeling playable right now. We just don't want him to be overwhelmingly playable. So we are going to go halfsies on the change from last time. So we are going, instead of the 2% that he got before, we're going back 1%, and we're keeping a very close eye on him to see exactly how much this affects him, if we need to do more. But we are happy to see him in play. We just want to make sure that he's not going crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Smite is a game, but all of those punches and kicks have dealt a lot of emotional damage to me, especially queuing Arena, and he is just pummeling me. So I limp back to base, no, please. So, yeah, cool. Glad to see it. The last nerf we're looking at here is Tyr.
Yeah, I mean, we gave Tyr some new things on his ulti, and it's been pretty impactful. And if you look at his ulti cooldowns, in the old days, they scale down to a pretty low amount.
Yeah,
we're not talking about raw level, but we kind of were. So I think normalizing it to 90 seconds across all ranks just helps make it feel not so crazy when he does get to use his ulti.
Yeah, it helps. It's fun to be able to use it. It's good to have it, but when it's that frequent, it can be really oppressive. Yeah. So, cool. Sounds good. Well, that brings us to an end of our balance. So good stuff, guys. Excited to see, again, with how huge the last change was, being able to now take a step back, take in the user data, that info from y'all in the community, and solo in on some of the things that kind of exploded. So, that's the cool thing I like about it.
Glorious Pridwin. Twice.
Yeah, twice. The one that explodes twice. Exactly. So next up, we have a new event to talk about called Caron's Journey, named after the boat boy. But let's check out some skins before we get there.
Oh, why, hello there. I've been hibernating for so long. It's time to ready, Teddy, go!
Greetings, traveler. I am a humble seeker of knowledge and wisdom. What brings you to my doorstep? Let me guide you.
It is time to end this. If you fight without conviction, you are sure to fall.
Are you tired of living life with no spark? Look no further than Thunder Rage, the ultimate energy drink that will unleash the beast within you!
You're in my city now, and if you want to survive, you better learn to play by my rules. Can't be too careful on these streets.
Welcome back.
Why?
Oh, I got there. He came back. That was so good. All right. So a lot of cool skins on the docket, a lot of cool skins coming out in the next update. You just saw a bunch of them, some from this new event, one from the bonus update, which we'll get to in a little bit. Or maybe you didn't see that one, actually, but we'll show it to you anyway. It's cool, spoiler. So this is called Caron's Journey, in celebration of our riverman flowing, or making his journey to the battleground of the gods. We wanted to have an event with all these really cool skins. So like a lot of events of the past, for those who are familiar with events, there is a bunch of different cosmetics and skins you can get. And including an award skin, which is the Barely Alive Bacchus skin, which you've seen. So our scary zombie bear, which is really cool.
He's kind of cute. He got a little hard on him.
Yeah, he's a zombie bear, but he has a pleasant demeanor, you know? It's not like he's looming
He's really
over.
happy to be alive.
Yeah, to be
Unalive?
unalive. That's
Real life?
Real life.
the line is blurred. But yeah, so as you go through that event, there will be different cosmetics you can purchase, chests you can roll, and once you get a certain number of skins, you will be able to unlock that free reward. So look forward to that coming up with the next update. But let's preview some of the skins. Just take a little bit of a closer look at some card arts, starting with Atlas. You know I love Atlas. That's my boy.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Dude.
that right there is the Solar Vanguard, and that is I absolutely love it.
I love the little core in his chest. He's like powered by some kind of like astral energy. I mean, it makes sense, considering he's the astrolabe.
That's
but
true. I love his astrolabe.
cool.
It's like a black hole, and he has he's even got a little utility belt. What do you think he keeps in there?
Gummy bears.
Gummy bear.
That's the first thing that came to mind.
You know
You're
what?
just hungry.
That's
Yeah, it
canon
might
now.
be.
This is a designer, so that's canon now. So those are gummy bear
How
pockets.
that works.
It's how I said it would work. All right, so next up, let's check out the card art for Poseidon.
Oh, this looks
Oh, this
so
one's
cool.
Chaotic Surge Poseidon. Look at that Kraken.
Yeah.
Bloodstorm.
Speaking of what you are seeing, there's something that also you're not seeing, and those are his legs.
And those
They're
are his
gone.
legs.
They're not there.
They're not there. Homeboy ain't got legs.
This skin is so awesome. I didn't. I was a little worried at first because I was like, "Oh God, is he gonna portray Poseidon very well?" And you know what? In game, it looks awesome, and it does feel exactly like Poseidon. He just, doesn't need legs.
Yeah.
You made of blood
He's made of some
or Kool-Aid or something?
Kool-Aid.
some goop.
Some good.
That's terrifying. His blood sword's really cool though.
It's kind of like a new take on the Infinite skins, where
Gotcha.
he's not so much like the shiny astral energy as he is like
Down
this chaotic
yeah.
energy.
That's cool.
I'm never gonna be able to shake goop. So all right, let's look at another one. Let's we saw him a little bit earlier, but let's check out Barely Alive Bacchus again.
Nice.
The skins.
So that's the heart you're talking about?
Yeah.
He wears his heart on his tummy.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
But don't we all? True.
He's kind of cute. I'm gonna stand by it. He's cute.
You know what? Take your stance. I don't think the person crouching behind the corner there thinks he's cute. They look a little terrified.
You probably just want some honey, okay?
Yeah.
Listen, just give him the honey.
Where are the bees? All right, let's check this one out in game. I want to see this one in game.
In game.
Yeah.
Dude.
Oh.
Oh, it's so
Oh, the
sickly.
green is actually really cool.
Okay, so it's not honey, confirmed.
No.
Honey. No, it's undead honey
Yeah.
From undead bees.
from undead bees, locally sourced. Are those bones?
Oh God. What is in there?
How many bones a bear got?
Well, I don't know if that's the
I think
bear's
he's been
bones.
devouring.
Okay.
Oh, it's like spine is showing. Oh my god.
Okay,
He's still cute?
So cute. I mean, we need to know.
I'm gonna say yes. Gonna regret it.
To it.
You know what?
I'm gonna double down.
So yeah, again, this is the reward skin for the Caron's Journey event. So
Yeah.
look out for this spooky, apparently cute fella coming out soon. But we have another card art I want to look at, and that's for Dark Prism E-Shell.
Oh, this is E-Shell's first skin, right?
E-Shell's first?
Yeah.
Man, it couldn't not show it off, right?
This
Also
skin,
had to be purple.
It had to
we
be
love
purple.
we do be loving purple.
We do be loving the purple. So super duper excited to see her get the first skin. I'm really excited to see what all the effects look like, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Going
yeah.
from casting all the rainbows and stuff to something that looks a little darker with all those purples and stuff. Definitely curious. So curious, in fact, that we're gonna go in game and check it out.
Nice.
Yay!
Let's take a little dive in.
Oh, they're kind of like moonbeams, but like black hole moonbeams.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
very
like
black hole.
Like you still have a little bit of the light themes of her, the prismatic themes. Right?
Oh.
Oh,
that's
Okay,
That's
all the
actually
purples, dude.
Yeah, it's like a purple to white gradient.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That is gorgeous.
That is super gorgeous.
And of course, the moon still makes sense.
Yeah. I've always loved like all of like just the way that all of her
Oh, so
UIs show.
purpley things.
So no matter what kind of purple you like, we got you covered.
Got all of them.
Oh, that's so
That
cool.
looks cool.
That looks really intense. I love that.
It does. This is, I mean, I say this with every skin because I'm a curious person, but every time there's a new skin, or a new god, I guess is what I meant to say, I'm excited to see their first skin because of how creative our team is and how fun it is to see all of their abilities and effects shown with new color and new light. So, immediately, absolutely love it. So, we have one more card art I wanted to show y'all. This is for the bonus update, and this is Shinobi Slayer Tsukuyomi.
Ooh.
So I just wanted to show our Dark Ninja boy.
Dude, he looks badass.
Yeah, he does.
He slays shinobis. It's just a hobby of his, you know?
Isn't he also a shinobi though?
Well, takes
Other.
to slay one.
He's gotta
Takes
be
one
the
to-
best, you know?
Yeah, exactly. He's
Yeah.
rising to the top.
There can only be one.
It's like a ranking. It's a leaderboard. It's very internal. You got to be part of the shinobi
It's a dual tournament. Got it.
But yeah, so again, this will be in the bonus update. You'll be seeing this in a couple weeks. But just wanted to
Yay.
show y'all, you know, because
So cool.
always better to show it off. I love being able to show stuff. That's why I love the show so much. So
Heck yeah.
super excited for that. But y'all have all been waiting for something. Y'all all have something in your heart that you want to see, and it's a man on a boat. I'm talking Caron, the ferryman. So let's show that off right after this cool little video.
Coins is all that it costs to enter the Elysian fields. 2 coins, no more, no less. That is the toll Caron expects. The ferryman of Hades is a simple being at heart. He has but one task and does it well. Neither judge nor jury, he is a fixed point in the cosmology of the underworld, a deliverer of souls to their final rest, so long as the proper rites have been performed and payment made. But attempting to board his craft without permission or payment is sure to arouse his wrath, which is never far from the surface. This is not to say that Caron is as irascible as some stories claim. Rather, he is a professional, a being of boundaries and permissions. To cross one, you must have the other. But those who defy the ancient laws which govern the threshold between the living and dead find that Caron is the first to confront them, and often the last. Yet, while he is a bellicose defender of the underworld's sanctity, he has also been known to console the souls of the grieving or the frightened. Though he is fearsome, Caron is not frightening. The souls of the dead have nothing to fear from him. He is both guardian and escort in one. He has guided his boat along the shadowed lengths of the Styx and the Acheron for millennia, and souls who book passage upon his craft are thenceforth under his protection against the myriad dangers of the underworld. To ride with Caron is to be ensured a safe journey to one's ultimate and final destination. But the time is coming where Caron must sail on unfamiliar waters. The pantheons are in upheaval, and the souls of the fallen are at the mercy of unfriendly forces. So the ferryman must set forth and bring these lost souls home, whatever the cost.
We're back, and that was Caron the Boatman's lore. So I have an arm now because they told me I could have one. So super excited. We've been waiting for this for a long time. As a Guardian stan, I'm super excited to see Caron finally reach the battleground next Tuesday, but that's like whatever, that's super close. But let's get into this. So, Lermy, this is your baby. This is another one of your god creations.
I'm
What
so
was
excited.
what was the path leading to Caron? How did this happen?
So we had a lot of discussions about who would be the Guardian for this year, and we kind of determined that we were balancing between a couple options, and then we decided that Caron was just a very cool choice, not only because he's just a really sick character in mythology, but because he also is just a character that has some funny Smite lore, if you will.
Right.
So, his actual lore is that he's the ferryman of the Greek underworld.
Yeah.
He is the one that is responsible for moving the souls throughout the 5 rivers of Hades, getting them to where they need to go. And he basically just requires a toll to get on the boat. And he makes sure that all the order is safe and sound in Hades, that souls are getting to where they're supposed to be, and they're not getting too rowdy either. So, specifically, he does a really great job. He interacts with a lot of different gods that are already in Smite. He interacts with Hermes or Mercury, especially to collect up some of the more important souls that come to him. He'll also work with Thanatos, who brings everyone else, the peons, if you will. And then he brings them past Cerberus onto the various layers of Hades. Of course, he replies directly to Hades as his boss, his manager, if you will.
The manager.
And he does also get to convene with Persephone and all the other underworld deities, if you will. But, considering the Season of Souls has let all the souls kind of come up to the mortal realm,
all over the place.
Caron's got to do something about that, right?
Come take care of it.
He's going to come to the battleground. He'll take care of it. He doesn't even need a toll from you silly mortals,
Well, it's funny that you keep mentioning tolls, because I like Caron because he's one of the few gods that exists that has, a pension plan and 401k matching. Like, he's got a job, so how exciting for him. But we've talked about him. We've shared all these trailers and stuff. Is it time to go in game?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Let's dive in
I'm
game
so
and check him out. I'm excited.
There he is.
There he is. You know what? Like we like to do, let's just see the kid. Let's blow this kid up.
Sure.
Throw it out there. That is so cool.
And that's the kid, everybody. No further explanation needed, right? We can just
that's
be on our
the show.
All right, I'm kidding.
No, yeah. So let's get into it. Obviously, we just saw a lot of really cool stuff there, and we're still seeing it. I mean, like we told y'all, the boat never goes away. My boy is boating all the time, 24/7.
Oh yeah, this is a huge challenge for our various teams because
Really?
we wanted to do this from the get-go, where we always wanted him to be on the boat, and so that created some challenges, right? It's like, how do we tie the ferry to the man? How do we make sure that he feels like a really concise, cool character? And you'll see here that he does a lot of really interesting little animations. He's got some effects touches all across the board, and he just turned out so sick. I'm so proud of all our various teams. And this jump sound, by the way, is just
so
it's so
cool. It's got the
satisfying.
boat noise.
It's got like a little kerplunk, kerplunk.
Yeah.
It's
I
so
literally
fun.
spent all weekend in a canoe, and like boat noises I have been hearing. This is so real. It's so cool.
Yeah, I'm just so proud of our various teams and how they came together to take on such a challenging visual and really just make it go crazy. But that's enough about the visuals. Let's talk about the kit a little bit more,
About the
shall we?
kid. I mean, we'll start with the very simple. Let's go with the basic attacks. I see him splashing people with that ore.
So Caron has traditional ranged basic attacks. They are just basic attacks, but they're ranged. It's pretty unique for a Guardian to have ranged
the
basics.
only other one I can think of on the top of my head is Sylvanas, except his are like AoEs. So.
Yeah, Umoja also has these
Umoja,
kind of
right.
normal basic attacks, but she does have a little extra component where if you basic attack allies, it does something.
yeah.
This is just standard ranged basic attacks, and we thought that this worked out really well for Caron because he's on a boat, right? He kind of has this area in front of him that makes it a little bit difficult to be in melee range, so we wanted to kind of give you the best of both worlds, where it kind of looks like if they're getting close to the boat, you slap them with the oar. If they're far away, they get hit by a scary deluge of water. River Styx water, especially. That was the other challenge, is incorporating the River Styx water into the boat and making the boat feel like it's actually, boating around, even though he is technically on land. But he's making a little trail behind him.
Yeah, that's super awesome. So I guess next we'll dive into the passive. So what's his passive?
Yes, Caron's passive is Ferryman of Souls, and so this will require some minions or some jungle camps here, but basically how this works is that whenever Caron is in assist range when a friendly lane minion or a neutral jungle monster dies, yes, both of them, they will leave behind their soul in the form of a coin on the ground. And so Caron is able to pick up these coins, and each time that he does, he gets 1 gold in his pocket, and he keeps a special soul stack. And he can have up to 20 of these soul stacks. And so you're probably wondering, what the heck do I do with these soul stacks? Well, anytime that you take a soul stack back to base, you trade it in, and then you get 2 max health permanently throughout the rest of the game. So you can see here, picking up some souls. That passive meter number has lit up to be 3. He's picked up 3 coins, some tolls. And when you go back to base, which, look at this animation, by the way. So cool. You turn him in. That is 6 extra max health for the rest of the game.
That
And
is super awesome.
you'll see as well that you can only have up to 350 max health gained this
Not
way.
infinite. That's good. 'Cause
Yes.
that's all I would do is stay in lane and farm minions.
Yes, and even if you're ever at maxed soul stacks, you still will get gold even if you hit that cap. So don't have to worry about being super extra efficient with this. But, you know, when you hit 20, it's nice to go back to base and get that nice little refresh, get a nice 40 extra max HP. And again, that lasts for the entire rest of the game.
That is super duper awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I had something I was going to say, but it just kind of sums down to I'm excited. Although I do have it on good authority that my soul is actually worth 6 dimes and 4 pennies.
Oh.
So, you know, if I happen to die...
Well, that's not one obol, so I'm so sorry, but you're not going to make it.
Okay. All right, well, now that I'm
You
uncomfortable...
have to go to currency.
I got to go to the exchange. Yeah, I'll hit an ATM. So let's go to the first ability, Spectral Surge.
Yes, so this AO1 is a line projectile that explodes if it hits an enemy god. So basically, it'll just do normal damage if it's just passing through minions. This can also go through walls. But as soon as you shoot it over an enemy god, you'll see there's a circle that appears. And so, inside of this circle, anyone that gets hit by it does take damage. You don't get double hit if you get hit by the projectile and the explosion.
Okay.
And then you get silenced for 1 second. On top of that, though, you can see there's a little ground particle and some extra damage going on. And so what's happening here is that every time that you move while you are affected by this debuff...
Why are they not? Huh?
It's probably lagging a little bit. Oh, no.
I may have broken it.
Oh, no.
You should be able to bots orbit 0 and it might fix it.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. A little bit difficult to show here, folks, but you got to trust me on this one. Anytime that you move, you'll make a new puddle. And every time that you make a new puddle, you'll take damage. And so you also will take damage for the duration of the puddle, however long that lasts, and be slowed as well. So this is effectively slow, silent puddle.
And what I'd argue is the strongest ability because he splashes you and then you have to run around with wet socks.
Oh, no.
Not the wet socks ability.
The wet socks ability. All right, that's super cool though. I like the trailing because if you know you're in a team fight in the jungle and you hit like 3 people and all of a sudden everywhere you step is just
yeah.
That's super awesome. All right, excited to play with that. Next up, we have the second ability, Damnation.
Yeah, so this one's super cool. So what Caron does here is he opens up a rift to the underworld and calls upon some spirits to haunt whoever is in the area. So it does damage, and it also then marks whatever enemy is in the area, as you shall see here momentarily. There's our opening the rift to the underworld. And if an enemy gets hit, there's a little skull on their head. That's their little mark.
That's spooky boy.
They're haunted here. And so what happens when they're haunted is that they are revealed, and their attack speed's also slow. But on top of that, if you, as Caron, or any of your allies, damages anyone that is marked, you get a shield.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, and so how this shield worked is that there is an initial value that you get, and every subsequent shield gives you 25% of that value. So you can keep stacking up that shield, keep fighting back if you want to, but you're only going to get 25% of that initial hit. So it is important to hit that one time, get that nice little buff, and then if you want to walk away, you can walk away, or you can just keep fighting into them, because again, they are attack speed slowed, they are revealed. It's just a good turnaround ability for him.
And a super good trade ability too, for sure. It works on allies too. That's awesome. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, well that's super cool, and I like the little skull too. I don't know, he's got big old eyes.
And yeah, so this works also once per basic attack or ability. It's not going to work multiple times if you have like Anubis one where you're taking a bunch. Only one time per ability. Yep.
That's good to know. All right, so next up we have the third ability, which I'm super fond of, Swift Voyage.
Yes, this ability turned out so fun. So this is a dash ability where you, as Caron, will forcibly row forward at a breakneck pace. And so you'll go forward with increased movement speed and reduced turn radius for a couple seconds there. And as you see, he's got a little bit of a wake going on at his side.
So cool.
So this ability is a root, but depending on how accurately you're hitting it, if you hold out that targeter for a second, you'll see there's a center line and outer lines. That center line will root for 1 second, and the outer lines will root for half a second. And of course, as you'll see here, after rooting a bunch in a row, you will TR. So trust me, 1 second and 0.5 seconds, but yeah, you kind of just get to row people over with your boat, and it's very, very fun.
Accidents be happening on the river Styx. That is, I love it.
He has insurance. It's okay.
Where do you think he puts all his coins? He's a smart investor.
Exactly.
Oh man, I'm so sad that it's taken us this long to have a beautiful boat in game. Like everything about this is perfect, but we have to get here. We've been working towards this moment in time. It's the ult summon sticks.
This ability is so cool, and I'm so excited to see people play with it. So how this ability works is that Caron charges for a fairly long duration. He gets crowd control immunity as well during this, and then he's going to summon a massive tidal wave that is global. So a lot of our times in playtests, we've had people try and cross-map snipe with this, which has been a lot of fun. And the other cool part of this is that any time that you hit an enemy with the wave, they are feared back towards the direction of the wave. So not towards Caron, towards the direction that the wave is going. So you can see there, it's going and going and going and going and
going.
It's just gonna go until it leaves the map, and then it's gone.
That is so awesome. And
but that's not the only thing it does.
Please
it does
keep
more.
going.
So you can also use this as a defensive tool to set up yourself and allies. The first thing that this does is anytime that you hit an ally with the wave, they gain some protections for a short amount of time. And if you decide that you also want to charge along with the wave, it has a 60-unit area behind it that grants you a pretty significant movement speed boost. So you can say, all right, boys, let's get in there. Drop the ultimate. Everyone's charging along. And one thing that you'll see Clumsy do here in a second is if you want to just drop the ultimate and then 3 alongside it, you can stick along this if you have a movement ability for a long, long time. It feels so epic to be able to charge in alongside your team with this wave, and especially if you're sending enemies back into you, they're going to get hit into a root, into a silence. He's got a lot of tools here, and as you'll notice, not a whole lot of damage. So he does have a lot of CC. He's very CC oriented. He's great at engaging. He's not so good at the whole stopping, peeling thing. He's definitely really good at being a distraction, and that's what he does best, I think. He's there to help and hurt. He's got that uniquely neutral perspective because he's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy either, though. He's just trying to keep order, you know, and this is how he's doing it, by fearing the enemy team back into you, giving allies shields, all that fun stuff.
That is so cool. And I can already think of, as an Atlas stan myself, and a Guardian lover, I can already think of a beautiful combo where you throw his global wave ult and Atlas a laser beam ult, and between the water and getting a tan, I'm going to call that the day at the beach combo. So
hey!
Super excited for that. But no, this is incredible. Again, I love the aesthetic. I love the boat. And I said this with E-Shell's first skin a little while ago. Every time I see a new god come out, like Lancelot had a horse. And every time they've made a skin for my boy Lance, the horse, I'm always trying to hop on and see what does it look like, how did they change the horse for the skin. And now I have a boat to do that with. I have a Guardian that I am already in love with. And every time, whenever it is Caron gets a skin, I'll just get to be like, well, what's the boat look like?
What's the boat? That's the question, right? But I have to give so many huge shout-outs to the team that worked on Caron alongside me. I've just, our programmer Nate did a phenomenal job. He also worked with me on the Martikaros, so this is the second god that we got a chance to work on together. Did phenomenal with the implementation. We had, of course, FX taken care of by Andrew. We had our sound design done by Dylan and Kellen, which is very exciting. We had animation by Matt. Just so many names that I want to shout out and just give love to. But just know that our whole team is so excited for you guys to try Caron, this well-requested figure within mythology, and I can't wait to see clips of you guys hitting those cross-map snipes. That's the thing that I'm the most excited about.
It's going to be incredible, and it took so long to work on it too because the team took a group trip to the River Styx, and it's really hard to get back from there. So
hey, but not impossible. You know, there have been myths of people doing that.
Yeah,
before,
true.
So.
Fortunately, we had a bus, so it worked out.
A boat.
But a boat, as it were. But all right, so let's look at some card art though. You know, we got to see the art for this. So something new.
This default art is so cool.
Incredible.
He looks so intimidating.
It does.
He's about ready to take all those coins.
And it's cool because he's a skeleton, right? There's no meat on those bones, but he's such a bulky skeleton. Like, Caron, if he ever did have flesh, maybe he never has, but he was a big dude.
Yeah, that was actually one of the really cool challenges that we had, as our modelers and riggers can attest to, is that when we created Caron, even though he's a skeleton, he does have kind of this meat suit. I don't really know how to describe it. Where to make sure that we could future-proof skins, if we were ever going to make him a human, we were ever going to make him anything but a skeleton, he wouldn't look strange with the proportions that he has. So it was a very important thing for us to do to future-proof him, and that goes alongside all of the different props that he has as well with the boat, making sure that is really easily, dissectable to put it into different stuff. But yeah, that was a huge challenge for our team, and I'm really happy with how it came out. And I assume someday you'll see in the future what that will look like.
And so you can pull that away if we ever want to make the definitely not a skeleton Caron, where he looks like a skeleton, but maybe not. So that's all right. Well, that's super cool though. See, that's just how much forethought goes into this stuff. Let's check out. So every god launches with a recolor skin. Let's look at what that looks like.
Dude, I love this art so much.
That is so white and gold.
He feels so regal. He feels like, okay, so we've got like the normal Caron, we've got good Caron, and then we'll see what the next one is. But
actually, like mortal hands now in the river. It's not the special ones either. So
I mean,
it's a little bit more
that
grim.
is what happens though. Is that if you don't pay the toll, you are stuck in the river Styx
behind.
for 100 years. Yeah, you're left behind. So
who's the little skelly friend behind them?
Tuck a little
he's the
away
soul
from
that he pulls out for his Stygian Surge.
Those are his friends.
Yeah, they're little friends.
Jim and Tambo. All right, let's look at the Ascended skin card art.
Yeah, now
that's
evil Caron.
That one's angry.
Evil because he's angry and he's red.
He's smashing through something. You can see all the broken up boats in the background. He's taking that's
match the day.
that swift journey straight through some boats or something.
So somebody dropped anchor in his parking spot, and he is not happy about it. So, oh man, I don't know.
I like this a lot.
Too.
Really
Yeah. Let's look at the card arts for the Masteries.
This one might just be my favorite.
Oh, look at that.
Look, somebody's like, listen, man, I brought the coin. Let's just
get on with it.
I saw you smash that boat. I ain't about to play those games.
Yeah, me when I'm playing Caron trying to give my passive to max stacks.
Right.
All your coins belong to me.
Give them to me.
I just love the scale on this one as well. You just get a really good imposing feeling of right. He is larger than life. He is a deity.
Yeah.
Can't be forgotten.
That is super cool. So, excited for this and excited for what I'm about to say because this is always fun. Yeah. We're doing the Race to Diamond.
Let's go.
We've been doing it a couple times now, and we're really excited.
Lermy's excluded, right?
Well,
Lermy will still
about that
participate. Excluded from the winning, but Lermy's going to be out here doing stuff.
Yeah, look at him.
So we have the Race to Diamond
That's
for
awesome.
Caron. So after the update launches, it will be a race to see who can get Diamond, and there will be rewards in store. Keep your eye on Twitter for all the details. But we had so much fun doing it with the last couple releases. We really wanted to make it more of an official thing, an official community push. So y'all get in there, lock Caron, learn to play, love the boat, and unlock all of those cool mastery skins. And tweet some of your best plays at us if you happen to have the capture going. Because, like Lermy said, we want to see those cross-map snipes.
Yeah, there are some fun achievements with this one too, where they are related to those trick shots that you might see.
I don't think I actually looked at those. I'm sure they're fun.
You're talking
I definitely
my language
set them
now.
by you.
Yeah, okay.
Achievement hunter over here. All right, well, super excited for all of that. So that brings us to the end of the show. We finally got to talk about Boat Boy. We've all been really hyped up for this since the trailer started releasing. What feels like an eternity ago since 10.6. So PTS will be coming soon. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on our socials. We'll let you know when that's open. We're excited for y'all to get in and test everything out and give us that ever important feedback, because I'll say it. I said it once. I'll say it a bazillion times. Give us that feedback. It helps make the game better. So sorry, I have easy flow elbow. But cool. So make sure to stick around too, because after this we have the Dev Insight show. So if you wanted to get a more behind the scenes look at some of the thought processes that went into why we made certain changes, or why Caron be the way Caron be, that will be waiting for you, along with some answers to some chat questions. Yeah. So again, thank y'all all so much for coming out to another wonderful Smite update show, and looking forward to see you again. Bye, Smite fans.
Bye.
Abandon all hope! Stygian curse! Pay the toll, or face the Ferryman's wrath!
Your end is here!
The underworld calls! For I will guide you. A new world is waiting.
Well, hey everyone, welcome in to the Dev Insight. I got Clumsy and Larry. My name's Gormizer, and of course, this is the opportunity for you who are watching on Smite Game. You're not specifically in my laptop, but you're going to be able to ask questions, and of course, we can then get the Dev Insight. See, there's the reason the name of the show is. And so I'm really excited, I think, to dive into this, right? New God is always really fun to talk about. But I guess first and foremost, because, patch notes goes by, it feels like so quick, there's so much to cover. Is there anything afterward that either of you are like, oh, I wish I'd gotten to say that, and I just never got the opportunity to elaborate as much as I wanted?
No. Between my preambles and my mid preambles and stuff like that, which I think I did a pretty good. Yeah, my post ambles, a little bit of all of it. I think I did a better job this time around. Right?
Yeah, I mean there was a little bit less to talk about for sure.
Yeah, not being the seasonal update and everything. Yeah. I think the main takeaways for me was just making sure that the community knows that we're obviously going to be paying pretty intense attention to the mage discussions. Obviously, the class bonus challenge it's a single bullet point, but it's a large amount of change that could mean. Is that going to be too much? Is that going to be too little? That's also possible too. The warrior and tank in general proc item changes. We've been doing that with bonus balance. We did that a little bit more with Pridwin. There's still a lot more that's in discussion as well. But I think the community themselves are having this discussion of like how much is acceptable, how much is necessary for tanks to still do what they need to do. Right? Where's that line between tanks either being damage dealers, being unkillable frontliners, be like what's acceptable for tankier characters. So I think that's something we want to keep an eye on. We don't want to go too far to the point where they're useless again. And I think those are the main 2 bullet points.
Did you have it? I mean, Larry, you got a whole god that came with this. I'm sure there's a lot we're going to cover.
I mean, if I could shout out literally every person that I worked with, I would.
Individually, you need to, actually. It's in the contract. I don't know if you got that part.
There were just so many people that I wish that I could shout out every single one of them individually because they really did make that process so smooth and nice and easy. But
I know that was like when we were originally talking about it, like, and this comes up, I think, with New Gods, almost like literally every single time, which is just like, if they are not just someone who walks, what is the animation going to be like? And I know like that's sometimes it's stifling because it's like, oh man, we've got to release this, and it's like we've got a time frame. Can we get this done? Was that like stressful at all with Caron at any point where like trying to get the boat and the effects to work?
It was because when we develop a god, they don't all come in at the same time, right? Not all the pieces are into place at one particular time. So how it worked for Caron was that we had our gameplay done very early, which is not typical for the process, but gameplay was done, and we were using basically stock animations from Morgan Le Fay, who was basically our decoy for a lot of the time. It's like when that stuff's not ready, we will just take from other gods and use them as like placeholders and things like that. So that was our stock, and then we were like, okay, he's like T-posing on this boat, great, let's get those animations in. So we started to get them in. We're like, yeah, this feels better. It's still missing something though. It's missing a little like zhuzh,
a little pizzazz,
a little extra on top. So we worked with the FX team, we worked with the tech art team as well. Shout outs to Jeff for making some really awesome different ways to make him paddle. He paddles uniquely for all 4 of the different directions that he's moving in, and then he has adjusted ones for the other 4 directions as well. So super nice, like, little detail there.
Can I ask a really dumb question?
Yeah.
Was there any like live research for that? Like, did you like go out to a boat and like how do you get boat to go sideways?
Personally, not me personally. However, we did have one of our animators that was in charge of the runs. Is what they're called, the runs, even though he's obviously not running.
Yeah.
They did do some like nautical like practice, like that they were boat enthusiasts, so you're like, all right, there you go, that's your thing. You get to work on the runs this time. Congratulations. And they were very particular about it. They were like, if he's gonna paddle this way, he's got to paddle that way. If he wants to go that way, he's got to look like this. So I was like, by all means, go off.
It pays off, right? Because he looks amazing when you get into the game.
Gosh, so excited.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that come up around Caron throughout this, but I know that we already have one that is ready and available for us. And so we can see what other class bonuses did your team consider, such as like what else could Guardians have had other than like CCR stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since we talked about this.
Yeah, I mean the class bonuses are something that we that's ever prevalent, is something that we added in, and something that we continue to want to think about tweaking, whether we need to or we don't. I mean, in general, we're pretty happy with the way that they've lied and then the way that they've kind of fleshed out to be. We don't want them to be like overpowering, but again, just like we saw today with the mage changes, it's something that allows us to give us little pressure valves. I don't want to dodge the question, but it's more so something that we want to be careful about answering too directly, because we might make future changes along this vein.
That.
And that's not saying we're going to do something like immediately, but it's something that we aren't not considering. It's something that's definitely still an option. So I think it is a interesting question. The main thing for us is we didn't want to do passives that drastically changed gameplay, right? Like this is the earliest example of something that was almost more of like a joke, right? It's like, what if the hunter class passive was like a mini like Odibo effect or something like that, where like chained through the minions and did something wildly unique, like Divine Ruin kind of got instead, right? It's like, well, that's just almost too drastic across the board. That's also really, really hard to balance, like the opposite of what we wanted to do, where it's less of a pressure valve and it's more of just like an added multiplier of just like how difficult to do things. So that's a direction that we didn't go instead. Could we have done something a little bit more interesting than like just CCR or some of these ones? Maybe. But again, it's tough to find that balance between, does this need like new effects, new visual treatment? Does this clutter every single game with 5 Guardians or 5 of the same class and on both teams, versus something just being simple that just allows us to really tweak what we need to tweak when we need to tweak.
I agree. I think that the simpler approach that we went with has worked out pretty well, because you don't really have to think about it. It just happens.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have to shape your whole gameplay around something from minute 1 that you're getting, it just feels a little extra. It feels like this should be just part of a God's kit. Like this is like to the point where I feel like, okay, this is something that I want to play around all the time, but it might feel exhausting if I'm an ADC main and every single game I gotta deal with oboe procs or whatever the might be.
Or like all warriors got like tier passive or something like that. It's like, well, I need to really think about this every single game, every team fight.
Yeah, it's just a lot more easy on the brain.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's potential, like if you ever are like, there's still another season next year, right? Like 11's going to come around the corner.
We could just throw this entire philosophy out and just go crazy.
Yeah, you never know like what kind of changes the future is.
And that's part of the fun with the seasonal changes. It's like, we tried these things out, what sticks and what doesn't, and it's a living game, right?
Yeah.
And 10 years plus old, and we want to make sure the game's fun.
It's really, I think that's kind of at least the fun for me watching it, like, even looking at some of the changes that came in this year, and I think the class bonuses, there it is. I was like, what's the word for it? Those guys like are really impressive, just because like you said, you go back to season 2 and there was something that was added that people were probably screaming about.
Yeah, exactly right.
Got removed, but then we added it back in like 3 years later, and it was actually a good change and everyone loved it. And it's like,
I mean, we're back to relics with like branching trees and stuff like that.
Seeing the game evolve has been really cool. And so I think having like any of these new features, and I think very appropriately, like you said, where it's like, I'm not going to dive into what we didn't use, because that might just come into the game eventually. Like, there's a really good chance of
perspectives, right? Is that not the people that work on the game today are the same people that have worked on it 10 years ago, So especially with the environment changing in terms of just the overall, like, what is fun in Smite. The same thing occurs, like, if you look at old gameplay, you're like, why are they doing that? Why were they doing that?
Oh,
well, they just didn't know what the best thing to do was. Players as a whole have learned so much over the 10, 11 years that Smite has existed. So we have to kind of adjust our philosophies to what the players really want.
Exactly.
And to what they know. I think it's frightening to think about. Like, we have that conversation all the time. It always comes up with, like, if you took the worst team in the Pro League now and put them against the best team in like, season 1.
I've talked to everyone about that specifically. It's like, were you guys good? And like, yeah, we're all bad. It's like, wait, what? It's
and
like,
they'll say it too.
Yeah, we were good at the time, but like, we all like, look what they're doing. We're bad. Everyone's bad.
Everyone knows how to farm better.
Yeah.
I'm sure
I think that's like a whole tangent thing, but like, yeah.
We're going on a journey.
Gamers optimize things more now, which I think is important.
And yeah, no, you're right. That's a tangent. We'll get down the rabbit hole. We've got other questions. There's a whole point. There's a whole point to this. And so we'll just look and see what the next question is. So, big fan of all of you. Have a great day today. So thank you.
It's Young Sonics. What's up?
Oh yeah. Could there be consideration in adding 2 glyphs into the builds, or do you think that would be too much?
2 glyphs in the builds is actually something that we discussed for this last season. It's something that can definitely still happen, but I think we mentioned this on the patch note show, this wasn't also the right time, because the reason why we chose these new glyphs to be added was also because we wanted to make sure we didn't just add powerful glyphs, we didn't add just like powerful glyphs in terms of like literally giving you power, right? Sure, Pridwin can do that in a different way or whatever it may be, but we wanted to add ones that like kind of rounded out different item builds that everyone felt like they have a selection of a glyph that they can use no matter kind of what their playstyle is. And the fact about adding additional glyphs to be purchases, it is snowbally. It's the team that's ahead can have one more glyph each, so that's now 10 glyphs per team versus a team that might technically have 0 because they're not ahead yet. And it is just increasing your strengths, right? It is giving you more protections, more utility, more power, whatever it may be. So while that's something that we could do, and I think that is, I wouldn't say likely, but it's something that we will continue to consider when we're already talking about reducing power and protections and stat bloat across the game. This wasn't the time to do it. So it's something we'll continue to consider.
That's like the thing we were just saying. Living game could maybe happen someday.
Yeah. Maybe we just give everyone like full glyphs, like no cap.
Yeah, maybe you just have 6 glyphs.
No cap.
Wait.
No cap.
That works though. I can't believe I just said that in like an actual way. Huh.
That would be an interesting, I think, set of play tests, but I don't know that would ever see the light of day. I think that
Monday, I want a play test on Monday with no glyphs.
6, just
glyph cap.
Pure
I want to see
6
what that
glyph
feels
builds
like.
and see what it's like. And at that point, I mean, you might have to start scooping items from other trees. Like, you're just like, I would never buy this on a mage, but I want the glyphs. So I'm just going for it. It would be interesting, but yeah, definitely something that, like you said, considered for the future. I know we have another one, though, lined up, or another question lined up. So No mentioned closer look in the article, but did you ever design Caron as an old man, or did you know from the beginning that you wanted him to be a stocky skeleton, but a skeleton nonetheless?
Honestly, it was a really hot debate for a while. We were having a discussion about what Caron should feel like and what the vibe should look like. We didn't really have a specific, he should be a skeleton, or he should be a lich, or he should be a wraith, or any of those things. It was like, what do we want him to feel like? What do we want the overall presentation to give the vibes of? And that was where we started, was what are his vibes kind of like? So you're like, spooky. We want him to feel strong. We want him to feel like a frontliner. So we had a couple of different places from there that we went. And so we had a lot of these other examples. And then when we were trying to translate them into actual game like visuals, it was having a lot of problems in terms of our scope, because again, we are time limited. That's just how games are. We have a limited amount of hours in the day that our resources can work to be able to get this stuff done. And even engine limitations, which is just a whole other topic, just due to the way that meshes and skeletons and bones, and that's just what they're called, by the way.
Yeah, not just Caron
not like
bones,
like
the
Caron
actual
bones.
like rig of the character.
Yeah, the actual rig of the character. But how many there can be. And so what we talked about is that cloth is really expensive in that regard. It's really, really
expensive. Boat, I mean, adding a boat is an extra thing. I mean, I know we had the same topic with like Lancelot with his horse. Anytime we have extra appendages or models or features, that's absolutely discussion. Is like we have limits that we need to uphold to.
So we came up with a bunch of different designs, and I think Jeff, the concept artist on Caron, actually posted a lot of those different options on I think his ArtStation. So if you are interested in checking out that like actual process of how many different designs we went through, definitely check out Jeff's art. He's an incredible artist. And overall, we decided that the concessions that we would have had to make him this robed figure was just not going to fit the vibe that we wanted. It was going to bring him a little bit, it made him look a little silly, I think, was the place that we ended up at, because we wanted him to be this frontline feeling character and really defy that norm of Caron as this scraggly, old, skinny man. We wanted him to feel tough. We wanted him to feel strong. And so combining that with the skirt aesthetic just wasn't really working with us on a number of different directions. So we said, okay, what's our solution? We still want him to feel like this ancient, chthonic character. Yeah. And so we had to kind of come up with the different solutions, whether that's like the pauldrons having those really sick candles that have a lot of different references in them, to the coin mail, which I think turned out so cool. I love that. I love it really so much.
Detail. It's something like you might not think about immediately, and the artist does. It's like, that's it. Like, keep that.
Because we did pose the question as well, what does Caron do with his coins? What
he wears them.
He wears them, apparently.
At that point, fashionable. With how many people he has shipped across, like he's probably got like a ton of like nice suits for himself.
Oh yeah.
Like he's already done the buying. He lived
Maybe
through
that's
like
just what
the
his
Renaissance.
Skins are. It's like the exact same character. You just give him like different coin armor and different coin tuxedo.
Yeah, just like, what does he look like today? What kind of new outfit? What's his new fashion? I do think it's really interesting, because like I know other gods, and this is going to go back to before any of our times, but like you look at Thor and it's like, okay, there's a lot of pop culture anything around him as an entity. So like creating something that still feels like Thor but is unique can be difficult at that point. But for Caron, it feels like there's a couple, like Percy Jackson, he's mentioned in there, but it's like going from like a book where you just hear about it, like Caron's not the most prominent. So like, how was it, I guess, like coming into those initial discussions, like did you have any envisioning on like this is what Caron looks like to Lermy yourself, or was it just kind of like yeah, I guess he's just like old and powerful, huh? And then it had to go from there.
I mean, personally, you know, I am a gamer myself, you might say. I too am a gamer.
You gave a little bit. I dabble in these like, such called video gaming.
So Caron has been depicted in a number of other games.
Yeah. Oh, calling you up there. It's like I've got the list of media references.
No, I actually did that though.
No, I know. That makes sense. That's what we generally want to do with like a physical reference boards.
Yeah, when we do our boards, that is generally what we do is we look at what other games have done, what other pieces of media have done. And so personally, I'm a big fan of the game Hades. And I was like,
oh yeah, of course.
That's Caron. And then I was like, wait, but that's Caron to Hades.
Yeah,
exactly.
What is Caron to Smite? What would that feel like? What would that look like? How does that work with the rest of the game and how he's going to play in the game? And I think moving away from those preconceived ideas of what Caron is and really exploring it from the ground up really helped us to come up with a super cool solution.
Yeah, I mean, I know at the time that we were starting to work on it, I don't know exactly when, the time people were just like, the Tibia Mariner from like Elden Ring. Like, if we're talking about like, it's like, it was almost like a needs to be the same thing because good game just came out, great game, and just like, do that. Like, the same thing with Hades, like, Hades is a fantastic game. It's like, but we always talk about the same thing is that like, we want our art, we want our characters, we want to be what, not just what people think they're going to be, but just what Smite is. Like, you know, if you Google like the characters, we want to see our art up there because it's just our version. It's not just like copy and paste from anywhere else, right? Like it's unique to our game.
And I think that goes to showcase like sometimes something that fits like, you know, in Hades art style or something like that doesn't always then directly translate to like that feels good in Smite. Right. Like that doesn't look
games.
The same.
And they have very different limitations too in terms of how to implement. That kind of goes back to our discussion about the bones and the
meat
rigging.
Suit, right?
Oh God, not the meat suit.
That is what we.
You
that's
did
what we
call it a meat suit.
That's what we. Call
I don't know why you called it a meat suit. But you called
that's
it
what it is, though. Okay, so we have.
Is that like an industry term that I'm just not familiar with?
Honestly, if it's an industry term.
It's a Lermy term.
But no, when we were designing Caron, we're like, okay, we have to future-proof this if he has like a human skin.
Yeah.
So our concept artist Jeff went back and like redid the concept all around this like actual physical guy. Like there is a guy basically as Caron.
Yeah, no, I actually remember that.
And there's again a piece of concept art on his art station if you did want to go look at it, where he's just this like really big macho guy, and it's like that's just the macho guy.
How would he fill out? You know, if he did he hit the gym and stuff like that when he was alive instead of unalive?
I have to say I appreciate it because I just have a massive rib cage. It blows my mind. And so when you were talking about that, I was like, I'm Caron. Like that's gonna be me in like 80 years.
SWC
no, I guess
cosplay, you know?
I don't know how long.
Caron's 80.
I'm not going to get into body decay on Dev Inside. Yeah, however long it takes till I'm a skeleton, I'll look kind of like that. He probably still looks cooler because his fingers are neater.
His eyes glow.
I don't think I'm going to have that as a skeleton unless I get some massive buffs.
Maybe like if you eventually get into. You know, maybe the Greeks were right, and maybe that is who you're gonna face at the other end.
I walk up, we get to bond over specifically our rib cage.
Whoa,
that's crazy. I've lost myself, but the good news is I don't need to know anything because we probably have another question lined up, and chat can ask something else for you and save me from being here. So, seeing as we're getting a lot more food skills,
what?
Like Thunder Rage
I read ahead.
Thor,
Sorry.
Which food would you want added next? And then they said boiled egg zhang kui.
Why boiled egg? I just stared at that.
First off, this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be a very hot take, and I understand that. I hate eggs. I hate all manner of eggs.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot you have really bad takes.
Look,
have you been spending a lot of time with Aggro? Doesn't Aggro hate eggs? I feel like this
weird because I've got 2 eggs on my team, you know?
Wait, what? Dude, that's my boss. What the heck?
Is this a segue to private joke when we were talking about the balance beating? Yeah, okay, it's fine.
So, if there are any skin concepts that are food-based, we know that Lermy is not putting forward any eggs.
Scrambled eggs.
Here's my thoughts. I want Yu Huang to have a hot dog skin where his dragons are hot dogs.
But where do you have hot dog?
Yeah, but I want more hot dogs.
If you think about it, you get more hot dogs, right? Hear me out. And then you can put those in the 4th of July chest as well. It's like, what else are you doing on 4th of July other than watching Joey Chestnut break another record?
I mean, Shablanque pizza skin, he's like the delivery guy.
Yeah, he's the delivery guy.
He's not a pizza. Could be interesting.
Well, I guess while you think about it, there's one, and I've been pitching this instead as like a thing we should make as like an energy drink. But now that there's an actual like Thor skin that has that theme,
Yeah.
what do you guys? This is literally just because I've been talking about it for years. What do you guys think about Zeus juice for Zeus? Like he'd be his own little can similar.
Yeah, I mean, we need to find a different type of can shape and stuff like that. I mean, the meat.
He could be a bottle,
sense, but yeah.
He could be a advanced
Well, a
GP shaker.
shaker cup.
He could be. I don't. If it gets into the game, that's all I really care about.
Sure.
But do you have? I guess. Without any insight, do you have any?
What
foods?
if like, geez, I'm trying to think. Like, Geb is like made of the different floating pieces.
Yeah.
I've been trying to think of a way to do dumplings, but it's like, what if it's just like a core, whatever it may be, and just like the dumplings, like
There's soup, like connecting him.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely. And then just like connects the different pieces of dumplings or something like that.
What we
And
need
it just
is
becomes a massive bow rolling.
A Campbell's sponsorship for Yamoja, and all of her water just becomes soup. Laramie, favorite food.
Favorite food.
And then turn it into a Smite skin.
Yes, mine was dumplings. Dumplings are my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. I'm gonna say pizza because it's easy and it's flexible.
Yeah.
Pizza. Who would be pizza? Who's like triangle shaped or circle
you're not
shaped?
thinking. Yeah,
Who's triangle or circle?
About like
shape?
deep dish. You could have just
Deep
like.
dish pizza.
Man,
I'm just saying, there's a lot of different ways to do pizza.
I'm trying to think of a good way to implement. I mean, with that one, the first thing you said was circle based, and I started thinking of ultimates, and I'm like, oh well, you could have like Sobek.
Sorry, I completely.
No, go for it.
I was just thinking like chalk. I don't know why. Not because of his
no,
model
but he's
shape,
all
just like all the
circles.
like all the like pizza effects, and like his ulti is just like a massive like pizza splat.
He could be the chef.
Yeah, and you're like throwing pizza slices.
Everything he does is pizza.
But I also love the chef theme too. That's also really fun. Like the Osiris skin that we had.
Yep.
That one was awesome.
It feels like that's like the slow evolution, right? We had the Mercury.exe, and slowly you start to see more like tech skins like that until eventually you can get a team. The pirate skins until eventually you get a team. We've got Chef Vulcan. We need more. Like we have to slowly get until we have enough chefs to make a team.
We need like the servers, like the entire kitchen,
the busboy, everybody
Yeah,
got
the delivery guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're getting there. I'm trying to think of any other food that would be really interesting, but like I just like wings, and so like if it gives you an excuse to bring in wings for a sponsorship
Raw has the
of
ramen
the
skin, but I was just thinking, what if
the
it's just
ramen
turned
skin
him
is
into like
really
cooked
good.
chicken? But
Okay, but Thor's like also a chicken.
Thor's the chicken.
Oh, not Thor. Sorry, Thoth.
You said that. That was like
you were so serious about that.
THO, and then I lost it.
Yeah. True.
Oh, but Horus has that chicken farmer skin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true.
It's just not like fried chicken, you know?
I just want you to know someone did say dumpling Geb, take my money.
There you
So
go.
you're on to something there.
Let's make it happen.
Then you just duo lane with Cupid, and that lane's
Yeah,
full.
exactly.
Just have a good time.
Dumplings.
Yeah, at that point, I don't even play Smite. I just leave so I can get some food. Speaking of which, there's a place that does some really good like Shanghai soup dumplings near here that I should
Oh
tell
wait,
you
yeah, I
about.
want to know. Yeah, for sure. I was just in Toronto and I was trying to get. I didn't end up going to my soup dumpling place. So
We were talking about dumplings and like I'm just
No,
I
wait.
could go for
That's
some
sick.
dumplings.
I do want to go. I mean, like, what are we doing after this?
What are we doing after this? You know
we round
what?
this up early?
Yeah,
We
we
can
can
do dumplings?
Chad, I'm sorry, you just can't. We've answered all the questions that matter.
We can take it to there.
How many of you like dumplings, chat? Yeah, we just take it on the road. I think we have another question to pull up. Maybe a little less food based, which is probably good. I'm hungry, so we can veer away from
Also, bands is beans.
Yeah, added. Oh yeah, why haven't added bans into Casual Conquest queues to prep people for ranked, or at least have a version of Casual Conquest where we have bans, which we did have in the past, right? Like that
There's
has
a full
existed.
pre-made game mode, essentially, and then there were also Match of the Days that had bans in them before. I think the biggest reason that we don't do this is that a casual mode is intended to be casual. You're supposed to be able to play whatever you want, no matter how good or how bad it is. It's for you to play the god that you want to play, and that's the biggest benefit of playing casuals. You can, of course, play customs, in-houses, tournaments. There's all kinds of fun ways for you to experience the bans if you really want them. But I think just as a core, a casual mode should feel like a casual mode that you can just load in and do what you want to do.
Jump into ranks, turn off like comms and stuff, and it's the same experience, right? Just if you're new to ranked, I think the best thing to do is just get into it. You know, if you're worried about toxicity, which I understandably so in all competitive games, go ahead and hit those mute buttons and just go ahead and play what you
That's
want to do.
still my favorite advice from like Bart in 2013 was just like get into game, mute everybody in the lobby, and just play.
Yeah.
And like if you mess up, just acknowledge, hey, you know what, I messed up, oopsie poopsie, move on, stuff like that. Also, you can yell at me if I pull the veil back too much here, but there's also like that discussion, like, you know, we have arena and joust and
I was thinking the same thing.
player base, right?
Yeah,
where it's just like if you
100%.
have these guys who want to play Conquest, this group that wants to play Conquest but with bans but don't want to play ranked, suddenly now you've got 3 to 4 to 5 different
exactly
sets of player bases that are trying to play the same
it's
thing.
tough. We mentioned the same thing when we brought together Slash and got rid of Siege and Clash. It's one of the main reasons if we can start consolidating game modes, if we can start making sure that player base isn't too split across all of them. Because as a matter of fact, it's just true that there are certain game modes that are more popular than others. Siege died for a reason. Just staring at Lurby. But you know,
you also love Siege. I love Siege.
I'm a Siege
That's why they
lover.
exist in the custom game modes and whatever it may be.
Exactly.
If we start splitting our player base even more than it is already, matchmaking just won't exist. And I know people. I think it was on like Reddit just a day or two ago. It's like, why is matchmaking like not doing so great right now? Whatever it may be. It's just, you know, summertime, player base might be lower. Whatever it is, it's just if you have less people playing, if you have people playing other game modes, matchmaking just suffers. Like if you want to say, hey, like let's have 10 other game modes and also let's make matchmaking good. Like you can't have both. Like
the easiest way to improve a matchmaking system is to have more people in queue. That is the by far simplest thing for us to just improve matchmaking. Is the more people that are in one queue at a given time, the easier it will be to find people that are similar to them and put them all together.
Yep. And I know, I mean, I don't really want to get into it too much because there's like 50 different ways. I saw the question in chat, but I did see it there. It's one of the reasons why like the different types of adventures, you know, it wasn't something that we took forwards later on.
Yeah.
Is just those time, you know, they were always designed to be time limited. There were a lot of scope, a lot of time to be put into it, but we can't just keep adding things. We can't just keep adding different modes, even if it did well. Like, again, one of the things that the reason why we did kick those out is because after the 3rd or 4th patch, the numbers just go down severely to the point where it's like, you're looking at like Siege numbers again. It's like, well, then what's the point? We don't want to make our player base
heavy investment up front for a couple weeks.
And that was
interaction.
that was just one reason, but it was the one that we were talking about as well. So like, and it is absolutely a valid reason why we started pulling back on those.
And it's, I think, something that we've noticed, or at least I've noticed, and this is not even from like a seeing numbers thing, but like literally when we had the casual conquest that was like 5v5. If you full party and queued up into that, you'd be sitting there for a while because you were waiting for another full 5 party to come in.
Yeah, or
versus being able to like
season 0 conquest and stuff.
Yeah,
like the amount of hype for that. Like, I mean, the amount of work for that wasn't trivial as well. Bringing back an old map like that, we would have done it earlier if it was like easy, right? But you know, it took some work. We played tested and stuff, and then like I think everyone's forgotten that it ever existed inside of our game, right? It's like, well, people really, really like things when they're gone. And believe me, I got the amazing chance to work on the PvE adventure. I love them. Smite part needs to come back one day. But the fact of the matter is like within 2 weeks, no one would be playing them again.
Yeah. And so
without a lot of changes and then matchmaking, and then there's a whole.
And then that's just a whole other investment, right?
Exactly.
It's like if we kept making those and then we had to keep balancing them, it's just adding so much more to the play rate. Not even like splitting up the player base. Like for the devs themselves, you can't just manage that many modes.
It feels like we could dive into a deep conversation at one point about like the essence of a MOBA and why they're so replayable over time versus like what would be, I guess, like Smite card or like
right, exactly. The essence
like,
of a MOBA is Smite card.
Well, and like what is it that makes, you know, Conquest so replayable versus like X, Y, or Z? But
100%.
Those are deep conversations that are not meant for right here. These are meant for questions, and I've been told that we have a funnier one that's lined up for us. So let's see. Can you guys coach us on the pronunciation of Chiron and Caron?
Chiron. That's the difference.
So now I'm actually curious
Sharon.
because I've been saying like Caron, like CARE dash on, like that pronunciation.
You can say
is that
it like
wrong?
that too. It technically is wrong. It's if people want to say it like that though, that's totally fine. That's probably the most common pronunciation that you'll run into. But technically, it is Caron.
Caron.
Car
goes on, car goes off.
Caron.
Or Caron.
That's actually a way easier way to remember. It's Caron.
Caron.
Someone in chat did say Caron and Sharon, and that's the other, I guess, dumb joke that I was going to say. But I came from a programming background, and so I see char all the time. And think, char, like it's a char, so it's Charon. Don't say Charon. Somebody will get mad at you.
I think the funniest thing about the past couple of gods that we've had is that they all have like normal people names too. Like we've been calling Caron Ron. He's just been Ron.
Oh, really?
I didn't want to play Ron in the playset.
Marty.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we had Marty. We had Shell. We had Maui didn't really. Ishtar didn't really. Who else we have? We had Surtur. Did he have like a regular name? I don't think so. I think he was just Surt.
Fire Daddy. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Earlier, someone said something similar, and you said that you didn't want that in it.
Look, you asked the questions.
You asked the questions.
First thing that's coming out of my mind.
No, I think we have another one lined up here. And someone said I'm a Python programmer. What's a char? And that's just that one's good for me. Have you guys considered bringing back more old items that were once removed? Guarantee they have a follow-up to this that is something about Hasten Fatalis.
Yeah, right. I mean, Hasten
Or
Fatalis
Golden Bow.
exists in rings and the other ways,
Yes.
and daggers, but
I think if we were to ever bring items back, they would have to be modified in some way. We're not just going to revive an item from the dead if we feel like it doesn't have a place. And sometimes, you removed items for reasons that they were problematic in some way. They were hard to balance. There's lots of reasons.
Can I break chat? I mean, I don't know if it's a little break chat, but like, who in chat wants Nemean back and who wants it not back, right?
Oh, gosh.
I want to see if people loved it or hated it.
It's going to be the ADC mains versus the tank mains.
Yeah,
going,
that's
yes,
what I love.
bring it back, and no, please, spare me.
Look, and this might show what I play.
All right, Billy.
I love having block stacks. Okay, so take that, how you will.
That's why Shell has block stacks now.
Yeah. Dude, I think we've had this discussion. I feel like I've had this discussion with Aggro a lot, where we always talk about how good block stacks are.
They're so
Block
good.
stacks are really,
They're like
really
just
good.
the best.
Gosh, they're so good.
It's one of the things I was like concerned when we were working on Shiva. It's like Shiva's blissful. Like people forget the pillar, the third ability, right, provides block stacks. It's
Yeah.
like, that's actually really good to stay in.
We've got quite a few bring it backs now, so
Oh,
this
gosh.
is the flood that you've opened yourselves to.
Okay. I mean, that's more than no.
Well, it's good to know.
You're right. I haven't
I
seen.
mean,
a
we have
single-
the Guardian Caron mains in chat, right? So they're all talking about the tank
All
side.
of our tank mains are here.
Yeah, I'm
This
not
is the
bringing it.
smart way to do it is to weed out the carries, get them out of there.
Can we get, no, I was gonna say, can we get the IGNs of all these people and like,
Yeah, let's just go look at their history. See
That's
what
a
kind of
joke,
things
that's
they
a
brought.
joke.
That yeah, no, we don't want your IGNs. We're not viewer games right now. We do still want your questions though, chat.
Oh, it's a
So
glyph.
make sure you keep
That's always
asking.
possible. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we did with like Witchblade, right? So to get back onto the question, there's always opportunities to bring these things back, like even the anti-healing effects and stuff within Venom Deathbringer from the Shuriken and stuff like that. There are ways to bring these things back, but we do want to be careful of just having niche items for the sake of having niche items. It is okay, but in MOBA is in MOBA is the most complicated thing that exists is the item store system, and that's one of the reasons why in season 10 as a whole we cut a lot of items, is because there's just almost too many. I mean, there were too many. So one of the main things is we wanted to introduce new items, so therefore we wanted to cut even more items. I think there was a net balance of like equal to even less items than there was before, and that was very much intentional.
It was like 3 or 4 less items. So we
I wanted it to cut like another 10. But it's hard to choose the ones. Like, what's next on the list, right?
Because you look at it and you're like, well, chin size. It does this list of things.
Yeah.
If we have another item that does that list of things, why are you buying one versus the other? And why not just have one that does?
And we want to innovate.
Or both, and then it makes a lot of problems.
Yeah, right. And then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? We nerfed the one that everyone was building, but it turns out the other one was the one that's still going to be busted now.
Yep.
Creates a lot of the items. I'm still always impressed every time we see any item changes. I think for me, because it's like there's so many numbers behind every single, like the cost, the powers, the effects that they give, their passives. Like there's so much that you have to think about. That it's like, okay, so if we make this a little more expensive, but then take down the power by 10, it's like, does that balance itself? Like, is that good? Like, I can't.
It's hard to tell.
I can't imagine being in that position.
And sometimes it is all about perception, right? Is there are items that have existed that have been probably really good for a little while, but people don't pick them up. They're not meta, and then suddenly SPL players try them out, or the meta shifts a little bit, and like this is like just the best item in the game unilaterally.
Yeah, and that's the thing about like small changes as well sometimes, is that things will fly under the radar. The pros will try it one time and they'll find success with it, and all of a sudden it's the most broken item in the game. Why haven't we nerfed it already? Yada yada,
Right.
yada, all of that stuff. And that just goes to show you that there's always new things that people haven't tried yet. And that's just going to be true for all live service games, right? That's just what happens when you change a lot of things in the game, is that there's all sorts of new combinations for people to discover. And that's the fun part, I think, in my opinion.
Yep.
It's been I just think fun, right? I'm just seeing from my perspective. For you guys, it's a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of stress.
That's our job. So.
Yeah, you get to look at the numbers and juggle all sorts of things that I couldn't dream of. I'll be honest with you. I think we do have at least one more lined up. Chad, I'm going to yell at you again. You just got to start lining up some questions to bring us. So, do you guys have any considerations for adding new shards because they think they were a great addition to the game, and wonder if you plan to add any more to the future?
It's possible. I think that right now we have a really good balance of like every single class, every single character feels like that they have something that they could use. You know, maybe you want to mix it up a little bit. I want to try cooldown on a Wheelix this time versus using the power one. Like there's lots of different options that you can play with. And I think right now it's at a very good point where it's not too bloated. Like, it's not like I have to make all of these micro decisions. I have just enough of a choice where I feel like my choice is impactful, and I don't feel like I have to min-max. If I pick the wrong shard, I'm not screwed for the rest of the game.
Right.
I just, chose how I wanted to play the early game, and that was that. So I think it's definitely possible. In my opinion, I think we're in a really good spot right now. But if we ever feel like, one is stronger than the other, there's room for another one, we could definitely do it.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in the same boat. Is that they feel like they're in a balanced spot. I feel like you can basically get whatever you want to get from those options. You want to make sure that they don't feel so unique or strong enough that you don't want to replace them into actual relics. We see a little bit of flavor with that, which I think is really interesting. Like some people hold on to their Horn Shard or something like that because they want to like wait for a Power Spike, whatever it may be, before they switch it off to an Aegis or something else, or wait till the enemy team comes more online because they want to use that utility in a different way. If we were to add more shards, I definitely want to be careful with what they provide, and they're not just overlapping with what we have already.
I feel so bad to admit this, and I guess I shouldn't because it's in the game for a reason, but like there's so many, and for the longest time, like cooldown shard was like my go-to when this year came around. I've gone back to Vision Shard, and I feel like I'm betraying you by doing that. Because it's like there's all the new shiny, the new cool, the new talents, and I'm just like, that guy.
If anything, that's helpful, I would say. It's just like we decided whether we wanted to remove it or not, and it just came down to like, well, what's the point getting rid of something that's not really going to hurt anyone? If anything, it's kind of the backup. You don't really know what to get. Well, at least you can be safe, right? Like you can have the option that you've always had that will still provide good use cases for sure. And I think it is important.
I'm going to make up a question just because this popped into my head just now, and I kind of want to ask. Discussions about global ultimates in general, when you're bringing them into the game, and I guess for Caron here, the most recent, but even looking back towards like Atlas, you look at Giannis's, like what kind of discussions go into should this be global or should it be limited? Like how do you decide the full range for something like that?
This is actually a very funny situation with Caron because he initially did not have a global ult. It was not global. And we were like, how do we get this a little more oomph? How do we make it feel more ultimate? What feels coolest here? How do we elevate this to the next level? We were like thinking of different ways, and I was just like, what if we make it global? What if we tried it? We tried it. We really liked it. We thought it was a really cool addition to the ability, and it didn't particularly change up a lot of that regular gameplay that you'd be doing if you're just trying to, role play. I'm just going to play a Guardian. I'm just going to use my ability like I'm supposed to. But for those people that actually care about that global level, that actually want to line up those cross-map shots on a slow-moving projectile, it's so cool. It also kind of plays into that charge into battlefield with the movement speed buff on the back end of the projectile. So it goes forever. As long as you can keep up, you can stay with it. So it's just a really fun addition, I feel like. Not everything can be global, obviously, but for the right places, it's a really cool addition.
It's definitely like, especially with these more projectile style ones outside of like, Nuwa, which is global in a different way, or Turnabog, which is a different way. It's just, is how, balance is going to feel as a Guardian, as a slow moving projectile, because the Caron ulti is not a fast projectile.
It's one of the slowest in the game.
Exactly.
If it's not just the slowest.
It should feel fair, and even if you do get cross-hit sniped from it, same with an Atlas, the chances of you generally dying to it are lower than some of these other ones, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important too, because like you have someone like Persephone Ultimate, maybe it stops on walls, right? That's a really, really large balance point, but in Conquest more so than maybe Arena or something like that. But the projectile speed is more increased, the damage is higher, but it has a very, very different type of limitation.
Yeah, I think the other fun part about this is that when I was imagining this ability, I had this very like, what's the right word? I have this very like clear vision in my head of like being a kid in like a really big wave pool, and like the wave is coming at me and it's huge and it's building and it's building and it's building, and then it comes to you and knocks you down, and I was just like, I want him to feel like he can do that. That was a
down in the water pool.
listen.
Splash. Caron can bully children.
Not to children, because it's a teen-rated game, but.
It's I think it's one that's fun because I think what you highlighted is I played one game in a playtest as Caron.
I remember this.
And I spent the first 5 to 6 minutes with my ult exclusively trying to hit somebody in the I'm in duo. I'm always trying to hit the guy in solo. 100%. I did not care about anything else with the ult. I wasn't thinking about the team. It was very selfish. and I don't think I hit it once. So that is a
But it's
you know,
fun
the
to
balance.
try, and when you do hit it, it's so fun.
You got to go the other way. So if you're hitting your side, you want to make sure where all the minion waves are, so you just get the farm.
So you get
from
everything.
all minion waves.
I can't remember. I want to say it was you and Aggro maybe in the solo lane. I can't remember who was over there.
Oh,
but I do distinctly
remember this.
remember asking, "Did you even see it? Did I come close?" Like every single time, and he's like, "You hit the middle of the lane, and no one was nearby. There was not a minion, not a camp. There was nothing in the area." I do want to. Well, actually, we have another one lined up, so I'll go to that one first. But I have one that's lined up that I think is really interesting. So, do you guys think about bringing back Smite Night? So, having something, you know, like an event going for the weekend to queue up with like friends and stuff.
It's a tough question because it's not really up to us. We don't get to decide those things. It tends to be like we are giving ideas if this is something that's brought to us. Like if marketing says we want to do Smite Night, then we go, okay, what can we do for Smite Night? And then we might get asked, you know, what do you guys think we should do for it? But that's not something that we unfortunately have control over.
You're not the spearhead for
no,
Smite Night. Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I do really like playing Match of the Day. Like if we had a counter for Match of the Day, I'd probably have more Match of the Day than any other mode played, honestly. I'm a big fan of silly game modes.
Yep, fair enough.
They're fun. This one kind of caught my eye just because it was an interesting concept as someone who typically forgets to use. Actually, I switched back to. This is going to combine the conversation. I switched back to Vision Shard because I kept forgetting to use my shards usefully.
Oh, okay. Sure.
And I was like, I can remember to ward because like I ward all the time, so that makes sense. This person had asked if you were ever considering adding a relic. I'm going to add shard onto that that has no active component but has a passive effect. So essentially, I guess it would take a passive item slot in a way.
Yes, we definitely. That was a pitch. I don't know if it was for shards, but I think it was just mentioned in general. It's just like it's just a unique idea of like, what if we do give all relics like a stat, or what if we do have a passive and active component? What if we just have one that doesn't have an active component but is just a really good stat stick? And I think what we came down to is just like, that's not really what shards and relics are for, right? Like it's an added layer of complexity, but that's not bad. It's fine to have some added layers of depth in the item system. Although again, the item system is a very deep place to kind of to live with all these new things. But you know, if we wanted to add items in a different way, we would probably find them in a different spot, find a way to do them as actual items. The relics, the shards, they're specifically there to have an on-use effect. That's basically like our descriptor for relics and shards. That's not the right place. And if we wanted to just have them as stat sticks, then that's just, you know, it's the bloat question,
items.
right?
Yeah.
It's regular items, and it's just adding power into the game when we're clearly running into the issue of too much power / protection / stats into the game. It's just not the right approach.
Because the discussion, I guess, coming into to this year, and as we just said a little bit ago, was like slash some items down so that you have room.
Yeah.
Has there ever been at any point the discussion of like, you know what, let's just delete everything and start new?
I mean, that's a
only
scary
items,
thing to
only
think
items
of, right?
specifically.
It's like, well, we have all these UI elements. Not that idea specifically has ever come up, but we have talked about like, you know, how can we innovate what it's like to buy items and go through that process, and how can we make it different? But nothing so extreme, I think.
That's nothing that extreme.
The amounts of work that would take would be kind of insurmountable. That's not as only as that a lot of work, but you'd have to have. For me, it also just comes down to like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
Right? Is it just to be new? In which case, I think doing what we did in season 10 was a pretty big step, because again, there's also a lot of comfort level. It's like, okay, well, if players come in, it's like, where's the items that they're used to? If there's literally zero, they might not play the game. They might just be like, this is just too much. Like, this is too much change. You know, they could rely on the recommended item builds and stuff like that, or an auto build. But if they're on that next step where they're learning the items themselves, then that might just be too intimidating. The amount of work that would take, it would be a lot. And also just like, why are we doing it in the sense of, are we trying to solve problems? Are we trying to introduce new types of items that just interact with the game in a completely different way? If that was the case, and we had a very, very clear vision on what that was, then maybe. If we were trying to shake up the item system just from the ground up and like go more to like what other games do with components, or just have like singular items that don't have trees or something like that, right? Something that just evolve naturally as the game goes on, then maybe there's more of a reason to. But I mean,
as of now,
that would be
a lot of work.
That'd be a lot of work, and I just don't think it'd be worth shaking up the fundamentals that players already continue to struggle with.
I agree with that. I think that items are a really cool way to take a character that you can play forever, basically, and just make them feel different each time that you play them. Like a character, from character to character, a lot of them will feel different, right? But if you want a different experience playing full damage Thor, auto attack Thor, full tank Thor, you know, any of those different things, You can get that through items. You can't get that through just.
Yeah, when an aggro goes like full ring Kepri build in an arena, I was getting surprised.
That's JMac for a long time was very adamant about the attack, like ADC Sylvanas.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
And so like you would just have two guardians over in the duo lane, but
there was like the build that honestly I think did work, which was like the older Meriden like Geb build or something like that. And I was like, damn, this guy's destroying me. And it was like
the double flip so big.
Yeah,
I was aggro in playtest.
I was like, huh, like this is viable, and I wish more people would do stuff like that because people talk about flex roles and whether we like certain things in certain places. I think the design team as a whole are always just like, we design characters, we design items.
Yep.
Put them where you want, wherever it may be, whatever you think works, and have fun and win.
How much did that come up with Caron? Because like it feels like like ranged auto attacks, his abilities, like he doesn't have any like crazy hard CC, so his damage can be a little higher than some of the other guardians. Like, does that concern you at all? Thinking that, oh no, what if he gets thrown in mid? What if he's thrown in solo? Like, what if he's not
his scaling
where he quote unquote should be?
Yeah, it's fine. So I don't think he'll really be that good at being full power. He has okay base damage numbers. We intentionally designed him with relatively lower base damage numbers in mind because he does have a lot of utility. His whole thing is being able to disrupt and buff up his team and the enemies, separately, because again, in his lore, he is such a neutral character that he really is just doing his job. He doesn't really care one way or the other. He's just gonna do both.
Man, look, I clocked in. I'm about to clock out. Like I can't deal with this right now.
That's him a little bit. But his personality in game is a lot of fun. But honestly, I think as a person that works on gods, I feel like if people want to play them in whatever role, they are more than welcome to try it. If the god ends up in a role that they were not intended to work in, so be it, and then we'll just adjust it accordingly. If they become a soul laner, they're just a soul laner. That's how it was for several other characters.
I remember specifically when like Danza came out and everyone was adamant on playing him in the jungle. And someone asked me that same question. I'm like, do it. That sounds great to me.
That was me.
Yeah. It was definitely you, but it was also happening in the community too.
I feel like that fits because even in at the pro level we've seen you'll see some weird things every now and then. Like,
I love it.
I throw this one under the bus unfortunately for this year, but Aurora played Opwash support.
Sure.
It did not go
that
too
was
well.
a game and a half.
Remember last year when they were playing
Johnny has played like Apollo Jungle
or the Yana supports of last year.
Yeah.
Right? Like that. I thought that was super cool.
I still remember that SMITE, by the way. That one made me so mad.
The thing that upset me is I tested that SMITE and I got it on the first try because I recognized, I think it was like the card art. I was like, oh, that's like the crash test dummy Giannis. And then,
that's right. Yeah.
And I nailed it. And then he showed me the next ones. I was like, if I did not get that, then I never would have known what this was. And it's upset me because that's the only one that I've done that well on, and it's not recorded anywhere. So you just have to believe me. And I might be lying, but I promise I'm not. It really meant a lot to me. I think we have another one lined up. That could be pretty fun. With the recent power decreases, are jungle bosses being closely looked at, specifically enhanced fire giant being harder / more dangerous to try and take?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that was on our list. We talked about that for the patch notes show as well, is that we wanted to be careful with structures, jungle bosses, jungle camps, basically literally everything that, power and protections could affect. It's like, how does this affect everything else? And one of the things that we concluded was, well, one, we need to see how other people play through this change that we made. Maybe they find builds that somehow circumvent the things that we've been doing. Maybe they find, just different ways of the meta. But also, one of the important things was, at that time, jungle bosses, like some of these neutral objectives, I wouldn't necessarily they're too easy to kill, but they weren't as much of a threat as they could be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like a fine line that we always want to balance, is that we want to make sure that you don't just solo Gold Fury at minute 15 or something like that. You don't go to Fire Giant with just 2 people and it's not a threat, or you take it before the other team gets to react. As we want to make sure that the jungle bosses specifically, but the jungle as a whole feels threatening, feels dangerous, feels impactful. Maybe we are on the other side of it. I do think that the design team is considering jungle boss nerfs, but we haven't done it yet because we still are curious to see how this feels. We also want to be careful because the easier you make jungle bosses, that's just yet another point in the snowball column, which is okay. That's just a very fine balance that we've been looking at. We in one of the last few patches we increased the neutral contestable camp farm versus the safe ones. We've kind of flipped that. We just talked about the local rewards on the Unleashed Titans, today being another point in the snowball column. I think we also talked about how the game lengths are a little bit longer than they usually tend to be, probably because we did a lot with the gold chests before and made to make snowball less important, right? So we're constantly swinging to make sure that we're on the right side of this line and how we want to address it. Jungle bosses is another one of those variables I think we could hit. We just aren't sure if that's the exact time, if it's the exact time right now.
It's that weird balance, and I think because like snowball is always used, and I think it there's a lot that it encompasses.
100%.
And it's so interesting because like there's that very fine line between the team that is winning is just winning and now it's gotten out of hand. Yeah. And that line is so difficult. Like all of the changes that come along with that, where like it feels like it's like, hey, this might end up messing things up down the road. It might not. Like you said, sometimes the game links get a little longer, and it's a small little number adjustment.
It's also just like the nature of competitive games as well, is that like, and just like the philosophy of players is that, you have your ranked games or your casual games, whatever it may be, generally not the SPL games. If you feel like one team is snowballing a little bit more than you'd like, right? What is the number? 3K gold advantage, 4K gold advantage at like 10 minutes? Bam, F6, right? Like that is too much snowball. We can never recover, right? Now, when there's a little bit less snowball at that time and game matches therefore get longer, you see a lot less surrenders because people know that what matters is the mid to late game. But then that just feels bad for the people who want to get ahead, who are actively like destroying the other team, don't want the other team to surrender, but like want a fun, middle game experience that does end naturally at like 20, 22, 23 minutes, which you probably don't see that much right now. But again, you go like 2 minutes too early, and bam, the F6s start coming out way faster.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can address that right now because I have had 4,000 gold leads at 10 minutes and absolutely blown them in my conquest game.
I thought you were going to say like the other way around. Yeah,
no,
okay,
I have been up by 4,000 and just been an idiot and lost them.
Yeah,
because
sometimes
like
you get a little
you get in your you kind of get a ego, right? You start thinking, oh, I'm so far ahead. This guy doesn't do any
actually,
damage.
Sorry to keep going on that, but I know I fully agree. I would say like whenever I play casual games with my friends, if we're ever winning really hard, that's the games we lose. Those are the games that go
100%.
55 minutes in and we always lose.
And it's you just sit there afterward and you're like, I just spent an hour.
Because they're just having fun. People just start having fun.
We're trying to win, and we could have won. And like it was right here. I remember the moment, and then I sat here for another 40 minutes.
Fire Giant said we were like behind their Phoenix when there's like a tier 2 still alive.
Okay, guys.
Okay, well now I'm just getting
a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we have one more lined up. I do want to ask this one, which is just: have you ever considered adding aura items that are outside of just protection items? So, like Sovereignty has an aura around it. All these other ones,
Shogun
but like
says attack speed.
Yeah,
Talisman.
But I think they mean
like
attack. I guess like if I'm a carry, I'm buying something with attack speed and power and something else.
Leather
on it.
cow.
Something else that gives an aura on it, which I guess we have some, but I guess more.
I'm trying to think. There's got to be more.
Yeah, we just ran into the issue of like a lot of the community decrying that aura items were too good, right? Giving too much stats to other people, and that's something we need to balance as well. So we want tanky characters to have their purpose, and they should be tanky too, and we want to provide utility to people.
You're a support. You're supposed to help everyone.
If you just give that to if you just give all the stats, like there's going to be just ubiquitous builds where we just like provide all the stats to everyone all the time, and therefore everyone is strong.
Can you imagine a carry with an item that enhances a mage next to you? Like that just does not seem like it's going to be very good for you. It feels like it'd just be like you said. At that point, it becomes one of those must-buy items, and then there's a whole balance hell
niche,
around
and
it.
then it's like no one ends up buying it, right? So Leader Scowl was definitely one that's something that we saw as being niche for quite a while.
I'm trying to let's see if we have others. I know we brought that one up. Chat. I said, well, hey, you know what? This one's just nice. It's not even a question. It just says thanks for the insights.
Aww.
Nice.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I think that is it's very appreciative. I always love having you guys come in and like talk more. I think it's helpful for everybody, right? To see a little bit more behind the scenes, some of the thought process that goes into these things, because like that's something I have always said every time we have any meeting. Where it's like, I see the top 1% of players doing very specific things every week.
Yeah.
That has no correlation to what this dude in Joust is doing and how they're playing and what that means for that game mode and arena and stuff like that.
It's about the holistic look at it, right? You got to look at everything.
Yeah. And I see a very narrow window. You guys see the whole shebang. And
oh, we try to.
Man, yeah. Well, and trust me, there's a lot of like, I guess there's a phrase for it that I can't think of. Moving parts.
I was thinking
of
a lot of moving parts.
Bells and whistles. That's the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff that you have to like adjust and suddenly, like, I mean, you had even said it, like
it's like the overflowing, like, you know, valves or whatever it is. Like you patch like a hole over here, you do some change
something springs
over here, you put your fingers in right there. It's like,
but it's always really fun. And I think since I don't see any other crazy, you know what? I'll ask one more question. How are you guys doing?
So good.
Like just
Today's been
having
awesome.
having a good day.
yeah, well,
Excited for the patch.
Patch notes are always really interesting because it's like a lot of work to be put in, and now we get to like kind of like get that the cathartic release of like people getting to see it.
Dude, Caron's been worked on for like 9 months now, and having to keep that in the wraps, bro. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I feel like every time you wore your Styx Ferryman shirt, you just had like a smile on
No,
your face.
dude,
It was
I
just
felt
like,
that every single time.
Now,
players don't know yet.
This actually does remind me. I had, and we're getting close to the point where I'll cut it off. But this one was one I wanted to ask during patch notes, and I forgot about until just now. Did the fact that they started using Row It Down as like their like thing,
oh my gosh,
affect anything in his kit? Like, did that give
Not
him
his
his
kit,
three?
no,
Did it
but
affect anything?
I mean, it affected some of the copy. Like, for instance, I wrote the Closer Look blog, and at the end it says, "Can't wait to row it down," or something like that. So
I'm sure you could take any of them. Probably Aurora, though, the happiest to have a god to
Well,
play
he's the
that
support,
matches his.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be. I'm expecting, and I guess this is
Aurora
just
doesn't play
blanket
Caron.
statement.
I'm gonna be disappointed.
At this point, it should be every game throughout Phase 2, right? Like we know.
I'll talk to him.
We'll like see what kind of we have to do to get that to happen.
Yeah.
But great dev insight. And great talking to you, too.
Yeah,
I'm always happy to have you around. I'm sure chat enjoyed having you around. But chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Of course, check out the patch notes. Check out everything Caron is going to be releasing on July 11th. That is next Tuesday. So you get in, you play them. You have to have fun. That's actually legally obligated. It was in the EULA. So just enjoy yourselves. But for now, we're going to close it out. So once again, thank you to everyone for watching. And we'll see you next time.